So when you first get to Cabot Lake Trailhead, there's this little area on the left. Clearly an area where you could do a little backcountry camping. You get a fire pit, a little table, probably where I'd put my tent right here. It's actually 2 fire pits. This one definitely looks more pronounced than that one, but nice little area to do some backcountry camping up here at Cabot Lake Trailhead. We're here at Cabot Lake Trailhead here in Central Oregon. Today we are hiking to Coral Lake, Shirley Lake. Ultimately, South Cinder Peak is our endpoint destination for this 14.5 mile, 2,600 foot elevation gain hike. We are at the end of August 2024. Today is a Friday morning. Just filled out my Mount Jefferson Wilderness Pass, so I have my permit in my trusty pocket. And let's get hiking. I gotta say, the road to Coral Lake is pretty darn nasty, keeping it real. I should say to Cabot Lake Trailhead. One of the worst in the area, in my humble opinion. I've done this hike once before, and frankly, I think I blocked out how dramatic the road was. I think it depends on your vehicle, obviously. If you've got a nice truck, it's probably not that big of a deal, but I've got a midsize SUV, so I could feel every little bump. So keep that in mind. If you've got a Mini Cooper or a Mazda Miata, I would not attempt to come to Cabot Lake Trailhead. 100% chance you will not be making it. Now, this hike starts out in a beautiful Burnout zone. Lots of Lodgepole pines. Burnout long ago. One of the yields of hiking through an area like this is you have less mosquitoes. It's kind of one of my, even though today's August 26th, so not really relevant for today, but one of my Central Oregon hiking hacks is earlier in the season, like July, when it's very mosquito-y, and a lot of the lake basins come to these burnout zones, and you'll have less mosquitoes. So one of the cool things about this hike, starting at Cabot Lake Trailhead, it's a little bit of a choose-your-adventure hike. Lots of short to intermediate to long distance hikes you can do, so you can have a contingency plan based on the weather, how you're feeling, etc. First stop is Cabot Lake, namesake for the trail. Trail's at 4,500 feet, Cabot Lake's at 4,700 feet, so it's pretty quick as we are officially about to enter the glorious Mount Jefferson Wilderness. Da, 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 da. Feels so different the second I step into the threshold. Not really. Doesn't make much of a difference other than the legal aspects as far as backcountry camping, etc. General tip, wilderness areas are almost always the most epic areas, like Three Sisters Wilderness, Eagle Cap Wilderness, Mount Hood Wilderness, Mount Jefferson Wilderness, Mount Washington Wilderness, Diamond Peak Wilderness. Always really the most epic parts of an area. So we're officially in the wilderness area. You get in the wilderness area just like a 10th from the trailhead, so it's almost immediate. And I do have my permit on me, my trusty pocket. Do make sure you stop and fill that out, because if you run into a forest ranger, they'll probably ask to see it, and you don't want to get in a negative situation because you didn't bother to fill it out. So you might as well just fill it out, put it in your pocket. That way you're ready. So this is a bit of a choose your own adventure hike. We start at 4,500 feet. First point of interest is Cabot Lake, 4,700 feet. Then you go by some, from my knowledge, unnamed lakes. Ultimately up to Coral Lake, very popular backcountry camping lake. You have some choices at that point. My plan is to go to Shirley Lake, and then ultimately connect up with the PCT. I will actually be crossing the threshold into the Willamette National Forest. This is kind of Deschutes National Forest, Mount Jefferson Wilderness we're in. Actually cross the threshold at PCT to Willamette National Forest briefly. Ascend to South Cinder Peak, get some epic shots of our close trusty friend Mount Jefferson. South Cinder Peak's about 6,700 feet. Our friend right there, as you can see, peaks, is well over 10,000 feet. So if you just start at Coral Lake, then it's about 10.5 miles, 1,400 foot elevation gain in that range. But if you do what I'm going to try to do today, knock on wood, it's 14.5 miles, 2,600 foot elevation gain. Still nothing crazy. Very doable, well within my range. A little room to spare on both those statistics. So the weather I'm hoping is my friend today. Low 48, which is what it is about now. High of 75, that's not too bad. Air quality, map was good. Actually had a little bit of rain and thunder the last few days. The rain has a tendency to dampen down the fire smoke. It's fire season, so I'm hoping for a great alignment. I mean, look at this clear blue sky. Might be one of those situations where we get a perfect confluence of circumstances, alignment of circumstances. Gosh, look at those views. It's one of the other cool parts about this hike is you are treated some pretty high quality mountain views right out of the gate. Your amuse bouche, your alpine amuse bouche motivates you to keep going. And those might be some of the Cinder peaks straight ahead. All sorts of peaks. You can see this is a classic burnout zone. This hillside we are hiking across. Wow, look at these views. I do always appreciate when you start to hike out with some panoramic eye candy. Pretty motivating versus when you just start in an enclosed old growth forest. A lot of hikes you have to earn the view by many miles of forest hiking, and this one you just start out with angels singing. Oh, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. You know, it's funny when you're planning out hiking, there's so many factors. I hate to say it, but the fire season and smoke ends up becoming one of the biggest factors. I checked the air quality. I was actually going to do this hike a couple weeks ago, but the air quality is so poor, didn't make sense to me. Oh, look at this. Didn't make sense to me to bother to hike all the way up to South Cinder Peak for a money shot of Jefferson if you wouldn't be able to see Jefferson because there was too much smoke. The air quality was in the red. So not only would it be unhealthy for me to breathe all that in, but I wouldn't even get the payoff at the end of the hike. So I had to scrub that hike. But today, I think everything is lining up for us. Air quality, temperature, being August 26th, I'm thinking the mosquitoes might be gone. I read some trail reports on all trails, and it sounds like we might be right at the edge of past mosquito season. So that is one thing to note, is because this is a series of lakes on this hike. Earlier in the season, like July, could be pretty mosquito-rific. Oh, look at this. So Coral Lake and Cabot Lake and Shirley Lake can have mosquitoes at them in July. It's probably the only downside. Burnout itself, that hiking area I'm hiking right now, is normally pretty okay. It's one of the benefits of burnouts, the silver linings, is that typically you don't get a lot of mosquitoes in burnouts. That's why I always recommend burnouts is actually a contrarian anti-mosquito strategy. A little bit of rocks, but nothing too crazy so far. We'll get the occasional plane overhead, but I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Oh, look at this. I've noticed actually it seems to be a particularly planerific area. Ever since I got here, I've been able to hear one of about 3 planes in the distance, so Happens to be the location. Not my favorite thing, but it is what it is. Oh, still getting these beautiful views of Mount Jefferson. Our close, trusty friend, our pal, our confidant. The mountain makes a great listener. Already in a little bit of shade. This is a great hiking temperature I'm at right now because I started this about 7:15, still near the very beginning. Sunrise was at 6:20, so just under an hour after sunrise, near the low of the day. Low is 48, so it's probably around 48 to 50. With all the shade though from all of this foliage, probably in the 40s, and it feels good. We're officially in the Mount Jefferson Wilderness, which you get to within like a tenth of the trailhead. And you start in this exposed area, not a forest proper type hike, more of a Manzanita exposed ridgeline, which frankly I appreciate. A lot of bounce back lodgepole pines from the fire long ago. Oh, look at Jefferson framed by aforementioned pines. This looks gorgeous. So I actually do really appreciate burnout hikes. Gives you more expansive views, kind of have more of an epic feel to them. And you kind of an interesting mix, eclectic mix, diversity of ecology, unique ecological footprint, which I appreciate. So I've actually come to enjoy these burnout zones almost more than some of the old growth forests. I love them both, don't get me wrong, I love me a good old growth forest, but in a way these can be a little bit more interesting, visually stimulating. So in the parking lot there were two vehicles. One was a camper van. We'll see if anybody's staying overnight at Coral Lake. As I said, Coral Lake is a very popular backcountry camping destination. Our first stop is Cabot Lake, and then some unnamed lakes, and then Coral Lake, and then Shirley Lake, South Cinder Peak. It's our turnaround spot. Very well pointed. I had a big protein breakfast, and I have 6 pepperoni sticks on me, 2 sugar-free Powerades, and a Rain energy drink. So I got 3 drinks, 6 pepperoni sticks, and I'm going 14.5 miles, 2,600 foot elevation. Gain, I would probably guess that'll probably take me around 7 hours. Started about 7:15, so that would probably get me back to trailhead 2:15, 2:30-ish, maybe 3, depending on how much I linger and lollygag, and drive home. The sun, beautiful blue sky. This is ideal conditions really for end of August. Can't complain. Temperature is perfect for end of August. A lot of times July and August are the hottest months. Central Oregon is pretty common in USFS. So it can be, I live in high desert of Central Oregon, Madras area. It can be 105, 108, 110 July and August on a hot day. So 48 to 75 range today, end of August, is actually frankly a dream. Between that, the blue sky, and the fire smoke having dissipated from some rain a couple days ago, I don't think we're going to get a better alignment all summer, frankly, of what we happen to be doing today. September's typically my favorite month to hike because the mosquitoes are gone, the people are less because school starts again, and better temperature, just ideal alignment. September's the golden month. I'd say August 15th to October 15th. That 2 months was like the golden window to hike here in Central Oregon. Weather, mosquitoes, people, everything coalesces. That's the time to explore the wondrous alpine zone. Generally speaking, alpine is 5,000 feet or higher. So Trailhead's at 4,500, so it's subalpine. We're still subalpine right now. And you can kind of tell by the ecological footprint, the mix of bushes and trees. If you do a lot of alpine hiking, you start to get a recognition for that unmistakable alpine feel, kind of a mix of tundra and pines and spruces and hemlock, and has its own distinct feel. The wanderlust of the alpine. And this does not have that feel. This definitely has a subalpine feel. All these manzanitas. They don't call these manzanitas. So Cabot's 4,700 foot. Then when we get up to Carl, we'll be in alpine. If we get to South Cinder, we'll definitely be in alpine at 6,700 feet. So this starts subalpine, ascends into the alpine. Oh, look at that sun. Here's a panorama of the ridge we started at. We're still in the initial Ridgeline section from the trailhead into Mount Jefferson Wilderness. We will be ultimately turning more into the forest proper. We look at that view of the valley down below. This is the Valley Ridgeline T-zone. You get some hints of our close friend, Mount Jefferson. We are in, after all, namesake, Mount Jefferson Wilderness. Seems fitting we should be able to see Mount Jefferson. Kind of funny, I do a lot of hiking over at Three Finger Jack area, and I've got videos of all three of the quadrants I break that down in. But I always feel bad for my boy, Three Finger Jack, because he suffers the permanent indignity of the whole area around him being named after Mount Jefferson Wilderness. Three Finger Jack doesn't even have his own wilderness. I always feel bad for the guy when I see him. Console him a little bit. I'm sure it bothers him, even though if he pretends it doesn't. I do have videos of that whole Three Finger Jack area. I've got the Santiam Pass Pacific Crest Trail up to the Money Shot. If you just go north up PCT, it's a high quality day hike. I've got that same Santiam Pass PCT to the right, Old Summit Trail to Square Lake and Booth Lake. And I have probably the most famous and popular one, Jack Lake Trailhead, permit required, recreation.gov, to Canyon Creek Meadows, to the Turquoise Cirque. You get to wave at some mountain goats that are halfway sideways vertical, that steep mountain. I like to extend that over to Wasco Lake, hike up Minto Pass, go at least to the what I call the Wasco Overlook, epic spot where you can look down on Wasco. I like to keep going up a bit though and hike partway through the Burnout, get some epic shots of Mount Washington before you arbitrarily turn around. I wouldn't go any farther than the base of the switchbacks up to the Money Shot, the highest portion of the entire 24-mile loop. So those are the Three Finger Jack hikes. We're kind of adjacent to them, northeast, starting at Cabot Lake Trailhead and going to Cabot Lake, Carl Lake, Shirley Lake, South Cinder Peak. Now, if we kept going down the PCT from South Cinder Peak, we would basically run into the Wasco Lake area. So it all connects. This area has a very similar feel because it is just a few miles northeast. Oh, this is beautiful. I never get tired of these panoramic ridgeline views. This right here is my kind of hiking. I know for some people this might not be that epic, but I appreciate me a panoramic view of the canyon and the valley and Money, mountain shots of our Friend Mount Jefferson across the way, the tip of it. Lots of trees. It's a gorgeous area. I feel like you're in the wilderness area for sure in this Ridgeline section. Oh, this is so beautiful. All these baby pines. It's like a Christmas tree farm practically. Except a lot of people don't really use pines for the Christmas trees, but it's got that feel. Pretty rocky trail. Definitely want to practice situational awareness and watch your step. As far as gear, I have no sponsors, but sometimes people actually have emailed me and asked me what kind of gear I like. So I'm a big fan of Norona, partially my bias because I'm of Norwegian heritage, although born and raised in America. I'm an American. But the Norwegian heritage bias shows in the fact that I love Norona stuff. So my favorite material is actually Power Stretch Pro. I look for it and buy it in every brand I can, basically. But my favorite is the Trollvegen Power Stretch Pro. I've got a fleet of them in every color. I'm one of those people. So wearing that. Shoes, I like Lova and Mammoth, but I'm wearing Mammoth today. I'm a little eclectic because as far as pants, I actually think the Japanese companies make the best pants. Because I like an elasticized waistband with a belt and then like 4-way stretch. And I feel like Goldwyn and Snow Peak make the best pants, candidly. So I often pair like a Norona or 66 North Power Stretch Pro top with either Goldwyn or Snow Peak shorts or pants, depending on the weather and the season. So today I'm wearing Goldwyn shorts. So kind of random. Scandinavian tops, Japanese pants, and I guess Mammoth shoes would be Switzerland. So international affair. We are losing our views of Mount Jefferson as it is slowly starting to hide behind the canyon wall to our right. As you can see, this hike has definitely got an exposed aspect to it. So far, I feel like it's like half shade, half exposed. You may want to wear a hat if you're all worried about getting burned or worried about the SPF factor. Probably not a bad idea. So far, it's pretty basic. There's enough rockiness and gradation of this trail. I don't really perceive any elevation gain. In fact, I might have gone down a little bit. Once we start turning up to the forest proper, is when we're going to start seeing a bit more substantive elevation gain. Not a mosquito or a bug so far, although I wouldn't really expect to see them in this burnout zone. So it's not quite a celebration yet, but just cautiously optimistic. A lot of bird sounds so far. If you're into bird identification, this is probably a pretty good area. Heard birds almost the entire time I've been hiking. Ooh, some scat. Beautiful blue spruce straight ahead. Love these sections where you have hemlock and spruce and pines, oh my, right on top of each other. Now we can barely see the tip of Mount Jefferson. We are still in the initial ridgeline zone, the exposed section, the ecological comeback from a fire years ago. It's pretty common for lodgepoles to take over an area where there was a fire just because of the nature of the spread of pines. They seem to be the most hardy as a comeback tree in a burnout. So almost invariably, whenever you see a burnout zone in Central Oregon, at least, you will see pines in various stages of development as the new round comeback repopulation of trees. And this area is no different. You can see across the way there's some more old growth trees over there. So we're kind of in the burnout zone right now, the baby pine zone, teenage pines. We will be getting more to a old growth forest proper here in just a few minutes actually. I feel like I can actually see the end, the demarcation tree line from burnout to old growth is rapidly approaching here in the next few minutes. We do have Cabot Creek to our right. Hear the sound of water rushing. I do believe that is Cabot Creek. Cabot Creek is flowing from, you guessed it, Cabot Lake. Nomenclature does not lie. Ooh, this is nice and shaded. This is great. So we are out of that classic ridgeline pine burnout zone, starting to enter the forest proper, old growth style. I will note there's enough airplane sounds around that I'm not even going to try to filter them out. Normally when I do a wilderness video, I stop filming for the airplanes and restart once they're out of the area, but this area seems to be located in an area that always has an airplane in earshot. If I do that, I won't end up getting any footage. So I'm just gonna roll with it, live with it. Just know if you come out to this trail, maybe it's the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, but this is a heavy air traffic area. You'll hear a lot of planes as you do this hike, which I think is a little bit of a shame. I don't like the noise pollution, but that would be outside my control. So it is what it is. I'm gonna roll with it. So far, I've seen one large pile of somewhat fresh scat. So I am definitely staying frosty. Don't know if it was deer or bear. Didn't see any berries in it. Generally, you don't see bear this close to the trailhead, but you never know. I'm just gonna stay frosty. Practice situation awareness. One of the tricks I do is every time I come around a turn like this, I always do a peripheral vision scan of motion for motion. I always look way down the trail for large animals, particularly. So one of those things I've been doing for years as a wilderness adventure that maybe a lot of people don't even really think about, but for me it's second nature to be scanning for motion as far as I can see. I realize if I don't actually say that I'm doing that, people may not realize it. So I don't just get caught up in my immediate surroundings or what I'm rambling about. Definitely in the old growth forest now. The ecological footprint has changed. Still have some young pines, but definitely feels like we've turned into the forest proper. Very ecologically diverse area. I'm digging the tree species. There's a trail we just came back from. That's what we're hiking on, looking back. And here is onward and upward. I find it kind of interesting as a bit of a trail map nerd that just before South Cinder Peak, you actually cross into Unnamed National Forest. You leave Mount Jefferson Wilderness, and then you're on the PCT, Pacific Crest Trail, and then you ascend 0.3 of a mile up to South Cinder Peak, technically in Willamette National Forest, right on the edge of glory with the Chutes National Forest and Mount Jefferson Wilderness. Then you come right back into this zone. Kind of interesting. We'll have to pay attention to see if we see a difference in the species. A lot of times it feels like the way the forest lines are cut does correlate to the geography. Sometimes where rivers and creeks are and different ecological footprints. So sometimes you can just kind of tell there's a couple forest demarcation lines where you just take a step and you feel like you're in a different forest. Even if there's no signage, you go look back at the map and you see right around there is where the forests converge, and you can kind of get a sense they actually have two distinct feels to them. I find that interesting. I do think every single forest and wilderness area is like a unique fingerprint. It's got its own mix. Three Sisters Wilderness feels a certain way. Eagle Cat feels a certain way. Mount Jefferson Wilderness feels a certain way. The Chutes and Willamette, Mount Hood National Forest, they all have their own distinct feels. I feel like you could quiz me. Like, I was actually very interesting, went over to Malheur, I don't know how to pronounce it, but went over there, did Strawberry Lake, and that forest just has a very distinct feel. Like, I feel like if you could sit me down and quiz me and show me pictures of like 10 different forests, and I would hopefully get a 10 out of 10, just get a sense of the slight differences in the rocks and the trees and the feel. They're different elevations, so they have different automatic mixes. I don't know. I find it interesting. A bit in the weeds, I'm sure, for most, but if you're a wilderness adventuring aficionado, enthusiast / nerd like I am, then kind of stuff's interesting. Feels like the tree straight ahead should have a sign, but it does not. An epic feel to it. It's our non-sign tree. So far, so good. Feels pretty basic. I feel like I'm going at a pretty good clip. Not really out of breath. Not redlining, I call it. Just kind of at a moderate to fast pace. The elevation is pretty easy. Probably the single biggest thing that requires your concentration is all the rocks in the trail. It's not too crazy though. It's distributed well enough that you can actually walk near full speed. We're in an old growth forest. Switchback zone. But I gotta say, so well graded. Like, I don't even really feel like I'm going uphill. It feels pretty easy so far. More in danger of tripping, apparently. Now, most people, if they're making a video and they trip, they edit it out. Not this kid. I include my trips and all. I call those unscheduled trip checks. just keep ascending. If the whole ascent is like this is going to be cakewalk. Really haven't gotten to a feel the burn section. It's been pretty much mild, well-graded ascensions over a rocky wilderness trail. So far, I'm digging it. So far, it feels pretty good, actually. It's funny, living in Central Oregon, I absolutely love it. I could not recommend it more. One of the best parts is the access. An hour north to Mount Hood, an hour south to Bachelor and Cascade Scenic Byway, and kind of an hour west to Sisters and Metolius area, Santiam Pass. But the funny part is that it's a bit of a mind game because you're excited all year. It's like all this epic alpine hiking, and you're like, I want to go climb this mountain and this mountain. I want to hike here, hike here. You got all these hikes lined up. You're foaming at the mouth. And then June, July hit, and it's kind of like the most mosquito-y time of year. And you have to worry about exactly where the snow line melt is. Last thing you want to do is try to climb, do an epic alpine hike and get 60, 70% of the way up and then hit 5 or 10 feet of snow. So you're watching the snow melt line, you're watching the mosquitoes, and then all of a sudden all these fires start a fire season like June, July, and you're checking the air quality. You're like, okay, if I could just get the snow to melt, mosquitoes to go away, and all this wildfire smoke, which is unhealthy to breathe and obstructing any panoramic views, if I can just get those three things solved, then I can go enjoy the wonderland. So if you live in Central Oregon, June, July can actually be a little bit of a hurry up and wait, frustrating window. My recommendation, because I don't think it's fun hiking with hordes of mosquitoes chasing you, and I don't like having to wear nets and do all that stuff. It gets a little nuts. My recommendation would be just know that June, July is too early in Central Oregon for like genuine alpine hiking. Just kind of plan your window like August 15 to October 15, like 2 months. Just backload it to end of summer, beginning of fall. Snow will be gone, mosquitoes will be gone, crowds will be thinned out, temperature will be less hot and oppressive, more wind, more chilly in a good way. So just backload your expectation and view the hiking window in Central Oregon as 8:15 to 10:15, August to October 15. And then you'll have a jolly old time. I get tricked by it every year. I guess my own stupidity at this point, but because we're in a situation where about 9 months of the year, it's all the alpine areas are snowed in. So we only get like a 3-month window a year, give or take, to do most of the highest quality hikes in Central Oregon in Mount Hood. So you want to maximize that window and get as many hikes in as you can, because if you let it get to the end of October and you haven't done the hike you wanted to do, and you're looking at a good 9 or 10 months to wait to try it again. So definitely ascending. These are the type of switchbacks I frankly like because they're very well graded. I'm going up. I can tell I'm going up, but it's not very steep. So I'll always take a well-cut, slow burn, well-graded trail over a steep mountain goat Sherpa style hike. So this area is very, very well designed from a hiking experience perspective. Feels pretty gold so far as the elevation gain, because we're going up. You can see a view of our friend Mount Jefferson, just hanging out, waving at us from the other side of the canyon. I will say this: if you're a Walking Dead fan, it's hard to go to Carl Lake and not think of Rick yelling Carl. But I will refrain from doing that. But every time I say Carl Lake, I think of Walking Dead. Keeping it real, I think that show has ruined the name Carl for me. Sorry to anybody named Carl, but that's how I feel. So far, so good. Ecological diversity abound. Ooh, hello, sun. Hello, brightness, my old friend. Fortunately, I don't need to be able to see in this section. This is the bird box challenge portion of our hike. Appropriately themed, I just saw a bird fly by, judging my bird box effectiveness. We are still ascending, my friend. We're still pretty early in this trail, all things considered. Kind of funny, being the first one to do this in a while. I'm absolutely covered with spider webs. Probably walked through at least 10 so far. Trivia question: did you know that Gwen Stefani was an avid hiker? It's the theme of her song Spiderwebs. Okay, that's not true. I made that up, but feels like it. No mosquitoes so far. It's August 26th. No snow, of course. But you don't typically see a lot of mosquitoes in burnout zones. So if there's going to be mosquitoes here, they're going to be congregating at the lakes, their home base. Then the humans stop at the lakes, and then they strike like swarms of micro vampires, feasting on our blood and promulgating their species. And that is the circle of life. So we shall see if that is the dynamic, or if they've all died. Typically after the first freeze, they die for the year. I haven't been paying close enough to temperatures to know if the freeze has occurred, but I did read some trail reports that mosquitoes might be light to non-existent, so we shall see. Fingers crossed, my friend. Because I prefer no mosquitoes over mosquitoes. I know, shocking, controversial position, but I'm not afraid to take positions like that. This is a pretty gorgeous area, I gotta say. I'm a real believer, a true believer. If you develop an appreciation for wilderness areas, for high quality forests, alpine zones, lakes, rivers, creeks, waterfalls, mountains, then you go on a hike like this and you are going to be in heaven. Every step from the first to the last will be epic. And then when you get to your destination, in this case, South Cinder Peak at 6,500 feet with views of Mount Jefferson, well over 10,000 feet, you get to your destination, your turnaround spot. It's a cherry on top instead of a false dangled carrot. So that's definitely the right hiking mentality, my humble opinion. Because I feel like I'm in heaven right now. Like, look at this. I'm through a dream wilderness zone, Mount Jefferson Wilderness. Fresh air, beautiful trees. if you could train yourself to fall in love with these parts and this part wets your whistle, then I don't know what's not to love about wilderness adventuring, really. We're well past that initial burnout zone with the baby and teenage pine trees on the ridgeline. And we are definitely in the old growth forest proper. You can see older trees. I always find it interesting, these wilderness areas always have these disheveled logs strewn about on both sides of the trail. Pretty common for a wilderness area. I think our most beautiful stops on this hike are going to be Carl Lake and South Cinder Peak Lookout. This will be our two premium zones, creme de la creme. But I do think this entire hike is beautiful, so not a step in this hike that isn't worthy and magical. Wow, it's a loud bird. Enthusiastically welcoming me is what I like to think. We've been pushing the Forestry Service to develop a program where we pay the birds to be local tour guides of hikers. I'm just kidding. It's almost a genius idea, though, almost. We pay them in worms. I'm glad I got here the time I did. This is the type of area where it's much higher quality when it's bright and sunny. A lot of times I'll time a hike so that I'm arriving like right at sunrise. Sometimes that yields a gorgeous glow. If I get lucky with a beautiful bright spectrum sunrise with a glow, it could actually give a magical ethereal feel. I've captured that on several of my hikes. But I feel like this was an area I'd rather be brighter, so you could see the forest in all of its splendor. So far, so good. So far, it's pretty easy, actually. Sweating a little bit. They said when I started at this point like an hour ago, it's probably about 48 temperature-wise, Fahrenheit. But I could feel the sun on me, probably in the 50s somewhere by now. In a few hours, it's gonna peak out about 75 today. So again, I got 2 Powerades and an energy drink and 6 pepperoni sticks. I got food and drink. Also, I have 2 battery pack chargers and 2 cords. So I can charge my phone up to 3 full times to 100, and I've got food and drink. So I feel like I'm pretty well prepared for this hiking adventure. It's actually kind of funny, a bit of that is overkill, kind of more contingency planning, knock on wood. I want to jinx myself, but very rarely do I drink and eat everything I take with me on a hike. More that I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So I kind of hope for the best, plan for the worst, wonder where that's from, and I bring more than I need. And you know, you never know, I could come across a hiker in a desperate situation and give them a pepperoni stick or 2, you know. It's not my intention to walk around giving away my supplies, but you never know. If you come across somebody in distress, I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat without thinking about it. Part of the spirit of the wilderness adventuring community. So far we're hiking at a pretty good clip. I feel like I've really slowed down at all. Tackled some of the elevation, more to come. Series of switchbacks that were so well graded I didn't even really feel them. Definitely haven't redlined yet. It's kind of, for me, I call it redlining when you feel like you get behind your breath and you start gasping. If you're really struggling or laboring. I try to hike in a way that I never redline the entire hike. If you get to a really steep area, my tip is slow down significantly. Do little micro baby steps if you have to. But my goal every time I hike is to never redline. Because first of all, your body, hormone-wise, serotonin-wise, dopamine-wise, it does some dumps that can have reverberation impacts on your energy later. And then also psychologically, if you get in that situation where you feel like you're behind your breath, it can kind of trigger a fight or flight. You can get in a really unfun headspace pretty quick. And you don't ever want to get in a situation where you're out in the middle of the forest and you're all of a sudden just over it. That's not what you want. So my recommendation is always hike at your comfortable speed, regardless of how fast that is, whether it's fast or slow. And on the uphills, slow down if you really need to a proverbial crawl. Walk very slow uphill. Always maintain your breath, your breathing, so you feel like you're in control and you have your wits about you. Don't ever feel like you're in a helpless slog. If your mind shifts to that, then you're not doing it right, in my opinion. Just take your time, and it takes as long as it takes. Bring lots of food and drink, battery packs. Set yourself up for a nice experience. You can stop and take breaks and have snacks. Stay hydrated, stay well fed, keep your energy levels up. Have emergency battery packs in case your phone dies or energy gets low. And you have set yourself up for success, my friend. It's actually surprisingly easy on the front end to plan for a successful, joyful wilderness adventure. It's a little bit of planning on the front end makes all the difference in the world. And at this point, I've done many hundreds of wilderness adventure hikes, and it gets down to a science, art/science at a certain point, and you just kind of know how to do it. So far, I'm really enjoying this. Probably the single biggest thing to think about is there's a lot of rocks in the trail, so you do have to maintain situational awareness as you hike. You can't let your mind completely drift off, or you could put yourself up for a tripping hazard. But elevation's fine, well graded, well carved trail here in Mount Jefferson Wilderness. If you just watch your fancy footwork, definitely wear hiking boots. You are committing hiking malpractice. You come out here in sandals or something silly like that. Candidly, maybe this sounds mean, but if a person doesn't wear proper footwear, comes out here and has a miserable time or trips, is kind of your own fault at that point. Architect of your own misery. I personally like hiking boots. Any brand, there's like probably a dozen high quality brands. I happen to like Mammoth and Lova. Those are Swiss and German. But there's a lot of other brands that are great as well. But wear hiking boots. Tie up your shoes nice and tight. Include the ankle wraps. And if you need like a Dr. Scholl's cushion on the inside to prevent blisters, that's not a bad idea. Also, there's blister tape you can put on your foot itself. But I would put a lot of effort into making sure your feet are tip-top, cushioned, like walking on nice puffy clouds. Nothing will ruin your experience more than getting a blister halfway through your hike, and then every step is miniature torture. So don't set yourself up for that. We are still ascending through glorious Mount Jefferson Wilderness. We have seen nobody or anything. No people, no sizable animals. Just you, me, and Bigfoot stalking us. I see you, buddy. Okay, no Bigfoot stalking us, but the other two are true. Just you and me, my friend. Ascending a forested wonderland, a wilderness zone. I haven't been identifying them, but I do feel like there's been a couple areas where, I don't think that one's it, but a couple areas where there might be a backcountry campsite. If I see one, definitively I will stop and identify it. Sometimes you see little side trails from the main trail, and it could be one of three things. Either it's a game trail to a backcountry campsite, possibility, or it could be a former trail that they stopped maintaining and has been taken back by the forest. Last but not least, sometimes they actually do those intentionally for like snowmelt runoff, control the flow of the snowmelt in spring. So sometimes, not necessarily this one, but sometimes you'll see some rocks creating a very clear like lip or step, and sometimes that's done actually to redirect the snowmelt. So it could be a multitude of things, but I have not seen a high quality backcountry campsite yet, at least right off the trail. Doesn't mean that I didn't miss it and it doesn't exist. It just means I haven't seen one. That was at least self-evident to me. Although some of these trails, they do have hidden backcountry campsites. Walked around some piles of scat. So if I do see any high quality backcountry campsites, I will point them out. I have a feeling this is going to be a pretty private hike. Only 2 cars in the parking lot, and one of them was a camping van, which means the people might have been camping in the van, which would mean that there might only be one other party in this whole area. And that could be up at Table Lake, could be at Carl Lake, could be at Shirley Lake, could be anywhere. So if the hiking traffic pattern for this hike follows most hikes, since I started early, I'm the trailblazer for the day, the spiderweb clearer. But on the way back, typically, especially for a Friday afternoon, end of August, that is prime time for some backcountry camping. So I would guess the way out will be entirely just me. I might bump into one other party, which is kind of how I like it, so that's good. But then on the way back, particularly the back half of returning to Trailhead, I'll probably run into 5 or 10 parties with backpacks on their way into the area to backpack Friday, Saturday night. That would be a pretty classic hiking traffic pattern based on my experience. So that's what I will expect. Kind of funny, this area kind of falls into my classic backpacking strategy. I like backpacking, but I only do it as a last resort. I only do it if geographically you have to backpack to get to the primo destination, the Tootsie Roll Center, the Tootsie Pop. So if it's, like Eagle Cap Wilderness, you're not going to be able to day hike to Glacier Lake. It's just not going to happen. So you have to bite the bullet and backpack up into the Lakes Basin and do a multi-day thing to really explore the area properly, ascend to the top of mountains, etc., to the top of Eagle Cap. So for those situations, heck yeah, I'm all about backpacking. But I feel like the lion's share of the hikes in Central Oregon can be done as long day hikes. If you eat right, take food and drink with you, start early as far as temperature management. I'm very comfortable with a 15, 18, 20 mile day hike. And I much prefer the nimbleness of hiking without a backpack. I hate having to wear a backpack and carry your tent and all that stuff. Makes the ascents a lot less fun. So I only backpack out of necessity, not out of plan A. So I feel like this area goes this way, is absolutely explorable, at least to South Cinder, as a day hike. So right now I'm doing a 14.5 mile, 2,600 foot elevation gain to Cabot Lake, to Carl Lake, to Shirley Lake, to South Cinder Peak, turn around, come back. That's very comfortable. I've done a lot of hikes, a lot longer than that. Everybody's got their own differences on their comfort level as far as limits, but I have my own, what I call my 22-44 rule, because I am so dorky that I have to name everything. That's how I roll. My 22-44 rule is this. The highest distance I ever like to day hike is 22 miles and 4,400 feet elevation gain. Hence the 22-44. Anything longer than 22 miles, 4,400 feet, probably too long of a day hike. Temperature profile, a good chunk of this hike, especially once you get off that initial ridgeline, get into the forest proper, this old growth forest I'm hiking through now, on the way to Carl Lake, it's pretty darn shaded. Like on paper, low 48s, probably low 50s, but shade can often lower it like 10 degrees. So this feels just the right amount of chilly nippiness, a little bit of bite in the air that feels refreshing, not oppressive. And we're going through a very dark section of old growth forest to see if there's a little side trail down to the shoreline. I bet there is. I gotta be honest, I always keep it real. This is not a beautiful, epic money shot lake. Now, Carl Lake, which we are getting to soon, is a looker. So Carl Lake is very pretty. Carl Lake's legit. I mean, what do you think? Do you even think it's worth going down there? I mean, hi, my name is Bog. It's essentially, I'll give you a shot of the rocky shoreline there on the right. This is essentially a bog known as a lake. You can see it's pretty low water levels. I would assume it should be a little higher than that, but I don't know. I'm not going to linger. I will say, good news, I don't see any mosquitoes. And if there was mosquitoes, they'd be right there. That would be their home base. That would be where they live. That would be Mosquito Grand Central. A bog, a swampy forest cascade bog. That is quintessential mosquito breeding ground. And maybe I just got lucky in there on the other side of the lake having some sort of convention or get together, but they certainly weren't wise of my presence. From my understanding, and I'm not a scientist, but I believe it is the carbon dioxide that humans breathe that draws their attention. So sometimes if you're going through a mosquito area, if you hold your breath and kind of run through it, that will help, because then you're not emitting carbon dioxide. And I could be wrong, I read that somewhere, I don't know if that's true, but I believe it's the carbon dioxide that attracts them. Some people think it's like the smell of their sweet blood. I don't think that's the case. Anybody who's hiking this is hiking the Carl Lake. The only question is, are you going on to South Cinder Peak? I'm a personal believer that if you've gone as far as Carl Lake, that if you've got the gas in your tank, big caveat, you're crazy not to go on to South Cinder Peak, because I think South Cinder Peak is like a gem money shot of Mount Jefferson in a gorgeous volcanic zone just off the PCT. And if you've got the will, if you've got the gas in your hiking endurance, I think you'd be absolutely crazy to stop at Carl and not go on to South Cinder Peak, my humble opinion. So Carl Lake is definitely one of the two premium zones we are hiking this for, Carl Lake and South Cinder Peak. So one's a lake, one's a mountain view. If I'm guessing right now, I'm probably more excited about South Cinder Peak than I am Carl Lake, because I'm a sucker for a good cinder, volcanic ash, alpine zone with mountain views. It's one of my favorite scenic topographies. So I'm more excited about South Cinder than I am Carl, although I think Carl's pretty awesome. All right, Forestry Department, I got an idea for you. It's 2024. You get satellite imagery to map out the entire country, every single lake, every single river, every single creek, every single waterfall, and you identify how many unnamed points of interest there are, probably mostly lakes, and then you sell off the naming rights per state to individuals. Go through a few year period where you sell that all off, really potentially raise millions of dollars on a national level. Then you take all that money, put it in a trust or a fund, and draw off it for your budget. On top of that, once the project's complete and every lake and pond and creek and river and waterfall has been named in the entire country, then you make new maps and you sell those, and you got another revenue stream. So you do that, probably put millions of dollars into your coffers, raise awareness, engage with the community, and also come up with a new mapping system that could be used for future maps and wilderness exploring. Create a grand website similar to All Trails that has every demarcation line of every forest, every wilderness area, every piece of land in the country, all the premium trails, all the mileage, elevation gain, points of interest. And you make that a grand forestry project, a moonshot for the Forestry Service over a 10-year period. You embark on something like that now, 10 or 15 years, it can be pretty impressive. So that's my challenge to the Forestry Service. I'm a small business owner, so I think in grandiose, elegant design terms, and I think that is the direction for the Forestry Service. So that's my idea, free of charge. Run with it. I think I found my first reasonably high quality backcountry campsite. There's a little bit of trail over here, and there's a flat spot. Not like a dream backcountry campsite, but serviceable. We're off the trail, at least you got the privacy of this row of trees. As a backcountry camper, I'm always paying attention to the potentials for backcountry camping. I really haven't seen much so far. Currently on the trail towards Coral Lake, and here's looks like a pretty high quality backcountry campsite. Come over here. Looks like a spot over there. You could potentially put a tent. I wouldn't say this is epic, but it's serviceable. You do have one of the unnamed lakes straight ahead here. So this whole zone could be a backpacking zone if you just want to be near water. This isn't a scenic dream destination. This is the unnamed lake zone between Cabot Lake and Coral Lake. So I would say that Cabot Lake in this area, this unnamed lake section after Cabot Lake, before Coral Lake, not really idyllic, not anything special. I wouldn't come here as a destination spot, more of you start too late on Friday and can't get to Coral Lake before dark type situation. But see, come down here and you're coming down to shoreline of an unnamed lake. I still don't understand why this one's unnamed and Cabot Lake is named. Logic doesn't make sense to me, but each has their own. Today's August 26th. I haven't had any mosquito interactions yet, but I haven't gone down to Lakeside, so we'll see here in a minute. I'm hoping we're post-mosquito, but... So here's the unnamed lake, after Cabot, but before Coral. It's serviceable, nothing great, keeping it real. Not really something wouldn't be worth the drive and the hike if that was your end destination, but interesting. I do like to stop at all the points of interest, along a trail, and this is your unnamed lake between Cabot Lake and Coral Lake. I think Coral Lake is definitely the looker of this hike, and then we go on to Shirley Lake, which I've never seen in person before, so I'll reserve judgment. Now, according to at least all trails, I think there might be a little bit more unnamed lakeage up here on the right, but our next major waypoint is our close, trusty friend, the beautiful Coral Lake. So that's where we're headed to now in earnest. Will be our destination for this waypoint. Once you get to Coral Lake, you can either keep going north beyond it up to Table Lake. That's a bit of a trek. I didn't calculate the mileage, but that is a long hike. That is probably more suitable as a backpack overnight to Table. Here's some backcountry camping over here. Maybe I'll take this. So we're not to Coral Lake yet, but we're in the unnamed lake zone. And this is worth noting. Got some flat area over here. I would consider this an unnamed lake backcountry camping zone. So at least suitable if you're starting towards Coral Lake Friday evening. You're worried about getting to Coral Lake before dark. You could always make a plan to get to here and to put your tent probably straight ahead. Right there is probably the best spot right there. Looks like it goes down there, but that's not taking anywhere. Right there, straight ahead is the best spot. You're right on the unnamed lake. So I don't know if this would be viewed as overflow, if Coral Lake is hopping, if it's bustling, or as I said, if you're just running out of daylight, I think on a Friday night for a weekend backpack, and you want to stop there for the night and then pack up and ascend up to Coral Lake in the morning, on Saturday morning. That could work. Then we're back on the trail. So Table Lake's more of really designed to be a backpack. A lot of people who go there really have an affinity for Table Lake. I think they view it as sacred, is the word I've read often. So I haven't had the pleasure. I've never been up to Table Lake, but one of these days it's on my list. When we first started this hike, we were on a Ridgeline Burnout with baby and teenage pines. Then we went to like a mixed subalpine area with hemlocks and spruces. I really like those two areas a lot. It's ecologically diverse and interesting. A lot of visual stimulation of colors and species. So that area I enjoyed. Now we're kind of in a more classic old growth forest. We're still in Mount Jefferson Wilderness, but candidly, I find these areas a little bit more monotone. It's the way we just came from. Could absolutely throw a tent down there somewhere if you were in a pinch. Not the best privacy line since you're right off the trail, but could work. So this is just classic old growth. Since I grew up in the Mount Hood National Forest area, to me this is a little bit more generic. I recognize that if you're from Oklahoma, you've never seen an old growth forest in your life, this is probably amazing. But for me, since I grew up with this in my backyard, it feels kind of generic. So this is pretty basic old growth. This almost has a Mount Hood National Forest feel. It really feels like Mount Hood National Forest, actually, I gotta say. This particular section. In fact, if I didn't know I was technically in Mount Jefferson Wilderness, Deschutes National Forest, if you plot me down right here, I would guess I was in Mount Hood National Forest. So I would say most of Deschutes National Forest over kind of near Cascade Scenic Byway. What I would say Deschutes National Forest, Three Sisters Wilderness proper, is more of a pine dry topography. This is kind of a hybrid border zone. This is, if we kept going north, we would be at Mount Hood National Forest. So this is the border side of Deschutes National Forest, ultimately with Mount Hood National Forest, and you can tell by the topography it's got an older growth profile. So I don't know, I'm kind of a tree species nerd. I'm into this stuff. I think it's interesting. Analyze the forest sure a lot of people, it's just a tree's a tree, who gives a rip, but I kind of like it. Feels like that could be a backcountry campsite right there with a little trail down here. I could be reaching, but feels like a little path. Yeah, I would say that might be a path. That would be pretty sloped, so I probably wouldn't want to stay there unless I was in a pinch. It feels like there's a couple cleared areas, like straight ahead here, beside of this log. It's a very cleared area. You don't typically get areas that clear unless it's been camped out previously. So I think that I'm going to view that right there, right off this trail, as a unmarked campsite for backcountry campers. Not really close to water, but serviceable, well shaded, it looks like. So yeah. Oh, and another one over there. I would say down there and over there, both backcountry campsites here in this old growth forest. And it's good to know that you have many options, because sometimes best laid plans, you could be coming here over the weekend to camp at Carl Lake. Carl! And you could get up there and it could just be slammed. You know, you can get the parking lots full and you get up there and it's like, whole place is booked. And then you got a tough choice. You just kind of want to camp with horrible privacy lines, which to me sounds horrible. Would you rather backtrack a little bit and come to one of these areas, at least have some privacy? I would probably value the privacy personally, but to each his or her own. Feels like we are getting close, my friends, to Carl Lake. Feels like there's clearing above us to the left. I feel like Carl Lake is close. Could also be my own projection, but I also feel like the air is getting more humid. It's oftentimes a sign. Getting closer to a body of water. You could sense in the wind a shift, the humidity. And I gotta say, I think the lake might be right up here. And I am right. Look at the incredible beauty of Carl Lake. I'm sitting here on the shoreline of beautiful Carl Lake. And look at how incredible this is. A very popular backcountry camping destination. You can see why. You can make out the snowy white cap of the tip of Mount Jefferson on the other side of that, just barely. Peeking out and saying hello. Oh, look at how beautiful this is. The beautiful, incredible Carl Lake. Definitely recommend this as a waypoint, and this is definitely some alpine lake eye candy. Way prettier than Cabot Lake or the Unnamed Lake. This is a worthy destination for a hike, but I would make this waypoint 1, and I would continue on to South Cinder Peak. My viewpoint is, if you're already this far, what's a couple miles more? I gotta say, for fishermen, the fish are so plentiful, I keep seeing them jumping out of the water. They want to be in your boat, my friend. Just get out here with a fishing rod and bring some spices. You'll make yourself some lunch. As we leave this Carl Lake shoreline, let's continue to hike along. It's a pretty gorgeous panoramic zone right here. There's always that funny irony when if you get to a lake too early in the morning, it still kind of looks dark and murky because the sun isn't hitting it. So people don't appreciate that the sun hitting a lake oftentimes is what makes it sparkle and beautiful. And if you are a responsible wilderness adventurer and you're coming in the morning to avoid the climb and the excess heat, the occupational hazard is a lot of times you'll get to these lakes too early in the morning for the blue sparkle. So it's pretty, but it's not given its full Carl Lake sparkle, that classic blue sparkle, which is emblematic of extraordinary Carl Lake. It's amazing how the time of day really impacts the color and quality and beauty of a lake. You come in the morning and a lot of the prettiest lakes can just look like glorified ponds and bogs and dark and murky. You got a panorama through these trees here in Mount Jefferson Wilderness of the beautiful Carl Lake. Let's continue to hike along a backcountry camper's paradise A lot of zones like this where you can make a little home, make a little backcountry campsite. I mean, look at this. A lot of flat areas, several places. I'm sure this has been camped many a time. Lots of cool areas you can potentially throw up a tent. Come around here. So this is just a big, beautiful backcountry camping zone. Kind of a game trail, unmarked trail system, hugging the shoreline. Ends up being user discretion where you want to set up a tent. So here's a nice little access point to the lake. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Look how crystal clear Coral Lake is. You could definitely go down this. This is a good type of dirt that doesn't feel too sketched. Like, this isn't bad at all. Look at how beautiful this is. That's the direction we came in on, Coral Lake. And here's a little rough shoreline trail down to Shoreline. Nothing too crazy. Didn't feel dangerous. You just kind of got to watch your step a little bit. And here we are on the shoreline. A beautiful Coral Lake. Look at this. Ignore the plane in the background. They're so plentiful in this area. It's kind of hard to shoot any video without some plane in the background. So we just roll with it. Ooh, that is the second jumping fish I have seen. It's like they want to be your dinner. Look how beautiful this is. Coral Lake. Pretty magical. Pretty epic. Get that rock straight ahead here on the shoreline. Sit down there and take a load off, have some lunch, drink, contemplate the meaning of life as you gaze. Maybe tell a story to your new trusty friend, Coral Lake. He's a great listener. Oh, this is gorgeous. Very beautiful. One of the cool things about Coral Lake is this shoreline. Not only is this water crystal clear, look at this. But this shoreline is epic. You got a long interface access area to Coral Lake. It's a type of lake too, you can just walk right in. It's not a steep drop off in the water. It's a gradual decline. So I feel like I could walk halfway into the lake. I don't know how deep it is at center. I don't know. Typically these lakes have some deep section, but feels like I could already be a third or a quarter into the lake very comfortably to like my knees or my waist. So this is definitely not a deep lake by any stretch, my friend. This is a majestic lake, really a dream lake. There's something about jumping fish here too. I've only been at the lake for like 2 minutes and I've already seen like 4 or 5 jumping fish. I'm telling you, the fish here are so friendly. They want to be in your boat. They want you to eat them, fulfill their fish destiny. So I go to a lot of lakes and it's not very common to see this many jumping fish in like 2 or 3, 5 minutes. Look at how beautiful this is, my friend. There's a bird flying. Getting some beautiful green of this lake as we walk this Coral Lake shoreline. This is a magical zone. We are in the alpine zone. I believe we're at about 5,500 feet, give or take. So in the alpine zone, enjoying this gemstone colored alpine lake. You can just walk right in. If you are coming camping here, I would definitely bring swimming clothes, swim trunks or something. Take some dips and cool off strategically throughout the day. I mean, you can go camp and come out to the lake and swim and relax and cool off and work on your tan. Man, this is gorgeous. Look at how beautiful this is. Honestly, this is a dream. This is a dream lake. I would say as far as like alpine forest lakes in Central Oregon, or I guess in the whole state of Oregon, Coral Lake is definitely a top tier lake. Is it the best? I don't think I'd go that far, but Is it a top-tier lake that's worth coming to backpack to? Absolutely. Not even in question, my friend. Look at how beautiful this is. Look at the glisten. We are getting the glisten on the shoreline right now. Look at that. And look at that. Pretty darn epic, my friend. Beautiful Coral Lake. Definitely a top-tier alpine lake in Central Oregon, and I'll just say in the state of Oregon itself. Something particularly attractive about the swimming here. You see this and you instantly want to go take a dip. I didn't really bring the right clothes for that, and that's not part of my plan for today, but sure looks like fun. Look at this. I'm dreaming of Coral Lake. Gotta remember, don't think of Walking Dead. Don't think of Rick healing Carl. This is Coral Lake. Oh, this is beautiful. This is gorgeous, my friend. The beautiful Coral Lake. Epic. Whoever said a lake couldn't be your friend. I'm standing here on the shoreline of Coral Lake, here in Mount Jefferson Wilderness, Central Oregon. And look at the glisten of the sun on beautiful alpine gem, Coral Lake. I am currently hiking beside this gem-colored lake on this long, vast shoreline. And pretty blown away by how inviting this lake is. It kind of makes you just want to go swimming in it. It's got one of those gradual declines once you're in the lake, so you feel like you can walk halfway into it before you're getting any depth. Also a surprisingly large number of jumping fish. I've seen like 5 now jumping fish in just a couple minutes. So if you're a fisherman, the fish are practically telling you that they want you to catch them. Come up here, backcountry camp for a weekend, bring your fishing rod, bring your swim trunks, go swimming, relax in the lake, do a little fishing, or backcountry camping, kind of relax in this alpine wonderland nirvana. Oh, look at how gorgeous this is. This, my friend, is absolutely beautiful. You see that jumping fish? That's what I'm talking about. Is Coral Lake not majestic? I am loving this lake. This is really the first time I've ever walked down the entire shoreline of the lake, and I'm glad I did, because I'm appreciating it on a whole nother level. Now this is a popular backcountry camping lake, and this can get popular in the dead of summer on the weekends, understandably so. I happen to be here on a Friday morning, late morning, hiked from Cabot Lake Trail, and pretty much not really people here right now. I'm sure many people are behind me coming up here for the weekend, so I'm sure this area will be heavily occupied with backcountry campers later today and this evening and over the weekend, but right now is the calm before the rush, right? To enjoy this rocky, vast shoreline pretty much to myself. And I gotta say, this is pretty darn amazing. My gosh, this is beautiful. Can I interest you in an alpine lake wonderland? Oh, we're at one right now. It's named Coral Lake. And when you hear Carl, don't think of Walking Dead like I do. This was named Carl first. Getting a little bit of a glisten of the sun. Don't know if it's getting the full splendor, but I'm definitely getting the effect. And it's a surprisingly shallow lake. Makes it ideal for swimming and lounging and just kind of laying in the water for hours. So if you come up here backpacking, you've got to bring your swim trunks. It would be a big mistake not to. I would have to check the regulations, but I'd probably also bring my fishing rod, because the fish here keep trying to jump out of the water into your skillet. Although I will say, check for campfire regulations. I do believe there's a burn ban right now, so even if you caught a fish, I don't think you'd be able to cook it, but maybe a different year you would be able to. Always check the current camping regulations as far as fire restrictions and obey them accordingly. But I'm going to go back up this little trail that I cooked down to the trailside. Now is the time to go on to Shirley Lake. Look at this. I gotta say, this little side trail actually feels pretty safe. I did not feel sketch at all to me. And look at this, now I'm back up in the backcountry camping zone. I'll go down to Shirley Lake and Cinder, South Cinder Peak. So you could absolutely slap your tent up here, go back down the trail I just came from, down to Shoreline. So that seems like a good recipe to me. I also noticed on the other side of the lake there was a rocky zone. I can tell there was a tent up there, so I think maybe on the rocks on the north side of the lake, overlooking the lake, is a popular backcountry camping zone. But right now we're on the south side of the lake. Some really high quality backcountry camping spots in this area as well. So, we are back on the trail. So we have our trailhead junction. Shirley Lake to the left, Cabot Lake that way. If you were going to Table, you would stay on Cabot Lake that way. Ultimately, you'd break off to the north of Carl Lake and you'd go up to Table. We are today going to Shirley Lake. This is my recommendation if you're doing a day hike from Cabot Lake Trailhead. 14.5 miles, 2,600 feet elevation gain. Cabot Lake Trailhead to Cabot Lake to Unnamed Lake to Carl Lake, which we just did, to Shirley Lake Trail to South Cinder Peak off the PCT as a turnaround point. 14.5 miles, 2,600 foot elevation gain. And that is my recommended day hike from this trailhead. So that is what we are doing. We're gonna hike this way up through this old growth forest, gain a little elevation in the process. I think really the quality lake in this area, in this zone, is Carl Lake, which we are leaving right now. But what I'm looking forward to is South Cinder Peak. So stop here, that's a great backcountry campsite right there. So I don't think this is Shirley Lake. I think this is just an unnamed bog. The map seemed to indicate that Shirley Lake was down here a little ways on our left. So I'm gonna go with unnamed bog on that. So if you're coming from Cabot Lake Trailhead, if you just stopped at Carl Lake, which is what we just did, you would do 10.5 miles and 1,400 foot elevation gain. My viewpoint is if you're gonna go that far, you might as well bump it from 10.5 to 14.5, so you gain 4 miles. The harder part is from 1,400 to 2,600. So you gain 1,200 feet and 4 miles if you hike to Shirley Lake, up to the PCT, and most importantly to the South Cinder Peak lookout. But it gets you an epic view of Mount Jefferson. It's one of the premium viewpoint zones in this whole area. It's very hard to get to. This is actually the most direct path as far as from trailheads from a car. It's along the PCT, so if you're a backpacker doing a massive backpack, yeah, you're gonna get it right as a 3/10 yield right off your main trail. But if you're a day hiker, this is really your most direct path. Cabot Lake Trailhead to Cabot Lake to Carl Lake to Shirley Lake to South Cinder Peak. So highly recommend, if you've got the juice, extending your hike from 10.5 to 14.5 miles and from 1,400 to 2,600 feet. And then you get to go see the PCT. Then you also get to be in the Willamette National Forest for a little while, so you get the bragging rights of being able to say you hiked through 2 forests and a wilderness area. Deschutes National Forest, Willamette National Forest, Mount Jefferson Wilderness. So pretty wide swath of hiking. So right now we are ascending up this section. Going to be some switchbacks up through this old growth forest. And then we'll hit some junctions for the PCT or the Swallow Lake trail. You can take either one of them. It's like a circle. They both hit South Cinder Peak side trail. This is a pretty area. Carl Lake was about 5,500 feet. Well, South Cinder peaks at 6,700 feet, so I need to go up 1,200 feet somehow. Part of that elevation gain is the 3/10 to the top of South Cinder Peak, but not all of it. So in this section, I've got to gain the lion's share of that 1,200 feet. So I feel like in this mile and a half or so, I'm in the calm before the storm, and a little while after this, it'll be a pretty steep ascent because I got to come up with 1,000 feet somehow. So I think it's coming up. I'll be doing some switchbacks or something. And I forgot my mountain goat, so I'm gonna have to do it myself. Can't jump on its back and have it take me up. So I've never done this trail before. Don't know if the trail designers were nice enough to give us a nice big placard that says Shirley Lake to the left, in which case I can go down and take a look. Sometimes they don't do that, and there's just like an unmarked side trail, and you have to know that's the spot. Sometimes if that's the case, I miss it because I'm not going to stop and take every side trail. I would never get to my destination. So hopefully there's signage, because I would like to go down and see Shirley Lake. I've never seen it before, but I'm also not going to scour the whole forest. I guess I can pull up my GPS if I need to, but I try to avoid looking at my GPS unless it's a last resort, if I truly feel like I'm getting lost, or if I want to do a waypoint check. I feel like to stay a little bit more spontaneously in the forest in my head. So I rather trust my navigation skills, use GPS as a last resort. That's how I roll. So I started this hike with 100% of my phone. I got down to the red 20% and then 10% left around Carl Lake. So I have 2 full charged battery packs. I now have this charged in. The 2 battery packs will both get it up to 100% again. They're the equivalent of 3 full battery charges, which is more than enough for this hike. So I anticipate I won't even get to the 3rd battery pack, or the 2nd battery pack, 3rd full charge. Now we're starting to a little bit more of a steep incline. I always keep it real on my hikes. This is moderately pretty, I would say. Get that sun, that's pretty. For like an old growth forest, this is pretty, but well, I like this section. I was gonna say, generally this is probably pretty generic old growth forest, keeping it real. We're up north at the Chutes National Forest, so we're not getting the drier pinorific the Chutes National Forest magic you get closer to Bachelor and Three Sisters Wilderness. This is more transition forest up north, closer to Mount Hood. Consequently, it's got more of an old growth feel. Technically in Mount Jefferson Wilderness, aka the Chutes National Forest, but kind of feels more with this mossy topography. Feels like classic Mount Hood National Forest, which we are closer to up north here. I do think it's fun to read the forest. You just look around and see the moss, see the breeds of trees, the heights of trees. You can sense the elevation, the wind patterns, the snow patterns, the melt. You know, a lot of trackers. I'm not claiming to have tracker level knowledge, but a lot of trackers can go through an area, they're tracking game, and they just kind of can read all this stuff. They can read directional footprints and all these things. I find it interesting. Lost art. It used to make the difference between life and death in prehistoric days, and now it's just something you read about on Wikipedia. There's a high quality backcountry campsite. I love these purple little flowers. I believe these are lupines. They're lupine or lupine? Who knows? Nice little breeze through this trail here. Kind of a break in the forest, creating a little breezeway. We are ascending. We are going up Shirley Lake Trail. So this is an ascension zone. Not too bad so far. Kind of feels good. We are ascending through this sunny forested passageway. Kind of feels like we're going through a hidden forest trail. It's pretty narrow. It's not hidden, it's a main trail, but it just has that narrow passageway vibe. Kind of can be fun. There's some more lupine on the trail. Brightens up our trail in our day with the beauty. Pops of purple. Here the trail's opening up a little bit more out of that claustrophobic zone, and now we're getting views down of the basin. Pretty beautiful. Definitely ascending. Woo! Well, look there. Hi there, Mount Jefferson. You see right in front of it, I think that's probably, there's Goat Peak and North Cinder Peak. So that's what we're looking at in front of it. And then right there, our close, trusty friend, our personal confidant, Mount Jefferson. One of the tallest mountains in the state of Oregon. Oh, that's beautiful. As we continue to ascend Shirley Lake Trail portion up towards the PCT, ultimately trying to get to the South Cinder Peak viewpoint. This is definitely the steepest part, the hardest incline slog of this hike. So if you extend it from Carl Lake to South Cinder Peak, very well worth it. But it goes from 10.5 to 14.5 miles, from 1,400 feet to 2,600 feet. But that difference in elevation is in a short period of time, meaning it is a steeper incline, making it the most challenging section of this hike. But why the heck not, right? Carpe diem. If you ever want to see South Cinder Peak, and you should want to see South Cinder Peak, it's one of the premium lookout zones in the whole area. As a car day hike, this is going to be your shortest, most direct path. Cabot Lake Trailhead to Carl Lake, Shirley Lake, and PCT to South Cinder Peak. So I think this is a bucket list hike. At least do it once. I think once you get to South Cinder Peak, it will have been well worth the incline. And I think this area is quite gorgeous. When we look down there, back at the trail, we are ascending pretty magical zone here in Mount Jefferson Wilderness. But we're definitely in the hardest part, the incline slog. Oh, this is so gorgeous. Feels like we're getting close to an upper zone here. Look at that. That is beautiful.
I knew there was going to be an uphill slog, knowing we need to get up to 6,700 feet for the South Cinder peak. And this is the part where we are going up the slog. Still on this Ridgeline slog with these beautiful views. We're going to be doing this for a little bit, then we'll eventually connect up to the PCT, enter Willamette National Forest, the striking range of South Cinder Peak. So I brought an energy drink, 2 Powerades, sugar-free, and a bunch of pepperoni sticks. Started about 7:15. It's 10:45. I'm 3.5 hours in. Haven't drank or eaten a thing. I always like to backload it, but I have more than enough fluid and food. So I think I'm gonna make a final push to South Cinder Peak, which I'm relatively close to. And then hopefully there's some rocks or logs I can sit on there, have a drink and a snack, kind of make it a lunch spot. And then when I'm satiated, I will head back. Probably the worst part is the sun is just baking me the whole time. It's about 11 right now. It's supposed to be a high of 75. I don't know what it is. 60s right now. The direct sun up in the alpine zone cooks you a little bit faster than being in the valley. So hoping this incline section's done soon. I want to get to the PCT section. Look at that. That is gorgeous. Across the way there, it's rocky outcropping. I really do feel, based on that rocky outcropping, that I am connecting up to an upper area up here. This has been a non-stop lug burner, climbing for a while. I think I'm near the top. I have to be. I haven't checked GPS, but feels like I come around this corner. I think I see the South Cinder Peak, the other side of this. So I think my long incline section is over, which would be nice. Because for the first time this hike, I'm feeling a little bit. I think I need a pit stop, some fluids and food. Hiking for 4 hours non-stop. I've done the lion's share of the 2,600 feet elevation gain. Yes, indeed. Precisely what I wanted. Here at an intersection, I got Swallow Lake Trail this way. Continue on the PCT that way. That Shirley Lake Trail will be going back that way. It's the way I just came. This, my friend, is the PCT. From the map, it looks like the PCT and the Swallow Lake Trail basically just meet up this direction a couple tenths. So my initial plan was to take the PCT, which is now what I'm on. I'm on the PCT. Maybe I'll come back to Swallow Lake Trail so I get both sides of this loop. It doesn't really matter which way I go or come back, but I'll go to the PCT and come back Swallow. I'm now on the PCT, the most famous hiking trail in the United States of America, as far as I'm concerned. Also have the Appalachian Trail and John Muir Trail, probably the top three. I don't think anything can beat the PCT though. Keeping it real. Kind of interesting, this luscious area. Here's clearly a backcountry camping spot on the PCT. Here's our trail towards Coral Lake, and I should turn off for it. Shirley Lake. Here's PCT. Just keep going. pretty neat to be on the Pacific Crest Trail. I've done long sections of it in Oregon, Washington, and California. I don't think I've ever actually done this particular section past the Three Finger Jack area. Between that and Carl Lake and South Cinder Peak, always kind of been a blind spot in my hiking map. Not today. That's why I'm doing it today, is to fill in that blind spot. So we are going down the PCT, nice and flat. I go to respite. I was getting tired going up that long ascension from Shirley Lake Trail. Got to the junction, turned left. I think I could have just as easily gone down Swallow Lake, but in my map, my plan, I initially planned to do PCT, so I like to always stick with my initial plan. If you start making split decisions, you can get yourself screwed up pretty quickly. So I'll go down the PCT. Right now I'm just going a few tenths until I hit the South Cinder turn to our right, and I'll ascend up to the South Cinder Peak, look across at our friend Mount Jefferson, and I'll call that a day as far as the out part. Turn around, descend South Cinder Peak, come back down either PCT or Swallow Lake, back to that junction we were just at, and then down Shirley Trail, back to Carl Lake, and from Carl Lake all the way back to Trailhead. As we continue on PCT, another little backcountry campsite. PCT is good about having a lot of rando, unmarked backcountry campsites, because they know if you're doing the PCT, anything could happen. You might need to stop and camp. So they're everywhere. Some good shade. Oh yes, thank you, shade. It's been such a long section of sun. The shade feels downright delightful. Our next turn is to the right for the turnoff for South Cinder Peak, which is directly to our right. You can make out it's a massive silhouette to our right. This might be, looks like this is the trail. So here's the direction we just came from. That's PCT towards Shirley Trail, towards Carl Lake. Here's, I guess, our little turnoff to go up South Cinder Peak. Here's if we just continue down PCT towards Three Finger Jack. So I guess this is it. Not a lot of signage or fanfare. It's a little break in the forest, but that's good enough for me. If you're not paying attention though, you can easily miss it, so. Can't always rely on signage. Sometimes you just gotta use your intuitive logic. Okay, so we are at South Cinder Peak, straight ahead. It's our close, trusty friend. Hello, South Cinder Peak. And here is, oh, hello there. How are you doing? Hi there, Mount Jefferson. It's good to see you, buddy. Didn't see you standing there. How you been? Sometimes when you're down here and you look up and you see that kind of looks like there's that trail on the edge, and you're like, oh my gosh, that looks scary or hard, or sometimes you can get yourself intimidated or kind of sketched out looking up, and you can kind of think, oh, this is crazy. But then once you actually just start doing one foot in front of the other and you go down to the base, you start up, you realize that sometimes the path you even thought from down here was the way up isn't the way up. Maybe there's a way around the mountain that's much less steep, and that's not even the main hike. Or once you actually get there, you realize it's not nearly as daunting step by step as it looked from below. So I would recommend for something like South Cinder Peak, do not sketch yourself out down here by looking up. I would at least approach the base and start climbing it and see what your options are. And now if you start getting high enough and you're like, oh no, I don't have trekking poles, this is sketch, by all means trust your instincts and come down, but never make the decision where I'm standing, because that's just a quitter's mentality. You got to at least go up there and try, get a sense of what's going on. And I can't tell you how many times, I think that's true of Belknap Crater, when you're at the bottom, at the base of Belknap Crater looking up, you see all these paths and you think that's the trail, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like a death march. But then when you start going up, you realize that that's just a side dune. That's not even the main trail. The main trail weaves around, is much easier. So if you let yourself get intimidated from a distance, you wouldn't even try Belknap Crater. Once you got up to it, you realize it's actually pretty easy. So I'm hoping this has that same phenomenon. But I'm gonna take a quick break, have some drink, have some food. Looks like this is our trail. And got a little cairn here indicating our path, presumably. Thank you, cairn. And oh my gosh, look at that. That is ridiculous. Hello, Mount Jefferson. Appreciated that view, that little clearing right there, pretty epic. Now this appears to be the trail. I came from the Coral Lake, Shirley Lake PCT side. This is my first interface with it, so hopefully there's not some like super simple trail on the other side and I'm just going about it the wrong way. That has happened to me before. But we'll start this direction and see what happens. Definitely steep. Yeah, this is very steep. This is one of those where you take micro steps. Show you this is the direction we're coming from. Look at that. Little South Cinder Peak action. Definitely a calf burner. Hey, look there. Our close trusty friend, Three-Fingered Jack. Hello. Just the peak of it. I wish I would have brought my trekking poles right now. This would be super simple trekking poles. So, this is our friend, South Cinder Peak. Not gonna lie, this is pretty steep. So see what the rest of the trail holds. Playing an epic game of alpine peekaboo with my friend Mount Jefferson. Anybody in the mood for a mountain alpinorama? So I look down on the trailhead where I'm hiking from. I wanted to stop and take a look at the incredible beauty that is Mount Jefferson. This is a bit of a naked Mount Jefferson. It's August 26, 2024. You can see a lot of the snow is melted. You can see all of the nooks, crannies, and crevices of our trusty friend Mount Jefferson. A couple months that will become a white snowmageddon once again, as it is probably 9 or 10 months a year. But this is the one window of the year where you can see the beauty that is Mount Jefferson. I thought I'd capture this incredible panorama. We've got South Cinder Peak straight up there. There's our zigzagging trailhead. And oh yes, the namesake of the wilderness we're in right now, one of the 2 tallest mountains in the state of Oregon, the beautiful Mount Jefferson. Absolutely classic. And also pan down here and show you this winding, circuitous South Cinder Peak path we've been ascending. It's a little sketch, not gonna lie. You gotta be careful. It feels pretty steep and it's pretty narrow and it's gravelly, so the weight shifts underneath you as you hike, but still very doable. The star of this entire area, one of my favorite mountains in the entire state of Oregon. The absolutely beautiful, incredible, majestic, mighty Mount Jefferson. Absolutely beautiful. I gotta say, Mount Jefferson always holds a special place in my heart. I have a house in Madras, and our great room is situated that the window out of the great room frames Mount Jefferson. So when I sit on the couch in my great room, my house in Madras, I stare and get a money shot of this very same mountain, the beautiful Mount Jefferson. So for that reason, Mount Jefferson holds a special place in my heart. Oh, it's so beautiful. I don't think I can express in words how absolutely beautiful Mount Jefferson is. Oh, this is magical. Here at the base of South Cinder Peak, there's South Cinder, and I wanted to explore this base side because I came from the direction behind me from Coral Lake and Shirley Lake, got on the PCT heading south, and I approached South Cinder from, oh hello there, that way. So sometimes you really never know the lay of the land of an area unless you kind of go around. The approach to South Cinder on this side, hello there again, is pretty steep. That might be the approach and the only approach, but for all I know, if you come around this way, there's a second approach that's much easier. No reason to go up the hardest approach if you don't need to. So sometimes it's worth investigating a little bit. There's our peak. We are continuing to hike along the base of our peak, checking out the design, the trail, access points, etc., etc. It's always just kind of fun to come learn how an area is laid out. So I initially approached this from the opposite side, from the north, from the Shirley Lake, Carl Lake zone coming south on PCT, and did not see any of this southern section. I did want to come down here just to see what it was like. I don't know if there's multiple access points or if there's clearly a trail on the north side to ascend it. I don't know if that's the only trail or if there's multiple trails. So I feel like South Cinder Peak is special enough that I don't want to just come to the one viewpoint and assume, or the one trail and assume that's the only vector. Hike around and see the lay of the land. Because frankly, that north approach seems like the steepest possible approach. I hiked up at about halfway and it is just straight up on shifty rock. It's doable, but if you're coming explicitly to summit our friend right here, South Cinder Peak, I would bring trekking poles, because I got about halfway up the ascension and I got some epic money shots, and frankly it didn't look like the money shots were any better higher, and I stopped and turned around and came back down. So I was like, well, then I was getting a money shot of Jefferson. I was like, looking across, it doesn't really look like it's any better view, so why go up the most sketchy part to come back down the sketchy part to get a view that's really not any different than what I already got. So I also read a few people saying that the views at the top in the red cinder zone really weren't any better than the views halfway up. So sometimes you get in this OCD check the box mode where you're like, I want to summit, I want to get to the top, check the mental box. But it's like, what are you really getting if you already have a money shot view halfway up the trail and it's actually framed perfectly with the basin and the trees and it's just dang money shot, like bam. And then you're like, well, I'll go up this really steep section and then I can turn around and scoot on my rear the way down because it's so sketchy. What did I really earn by that additional risk? Nothing. So it's just my humble opinion. I have absolutely no idea where this is going, but I see that area straight ahead and I feel like, is this going up there or is this going around? I don't know where I'm going right now. But that's part of the fun of wilderness adventuring. I know exactly how to get back to the front side of Cinder Peak and then back over to PCT and back down to Carl Lake. So I could pull the ripcord at any second and turn around. But I'm going to see this through because I'm this far and I still am holding out hope that this is going to take us a smoother gradation to Cinder Peak, which I would love to take. If I can get to the top of Cinder Peak without having to go up that steep thing, I would just come back down this way too, and I will take it. I'd rather go a longer way around, a more gradual incline decline, than like straight up down mountain goat style, Sherpa style. It's unnecessarily risky. This is a pretty gorgeous zone. I mean, look at this. Can I interest you in a volcanic wonderland? Jeez, this is legit epic, I'll even say. Drop the E word, epic. Epic. This is pretty darn epic. Look at those like red little bushes on the side of that volcanic cinder zone cone peak thing. It looks pretty epic. It's like it's on fire, like lava. It's pretty cool. Digging it. Well, I think this was a good move to come around here. I'm digging this. I think this is pretty darn awesome. Don't know yet if this is going to take me all the way up to the top of Cinder, but I know it's kind of taking me through a pretty cool zone. So now I'd have to look up the camping regulations in this area. Looks like a pretty pristine volcanic environment. So if I had to guess, you probably can't camp over here just because they don't want you to disturb the delicate ecosystem, which is probably the right policy. But I was going to say it looks like it'd be a dream zone to camp, but probably not. It's just a cool area to come hang out in. So there's a cairn. I don't know what that giant cairn is right there. Typically cairns are indicative of something. Like a lot of times it's like a climber's trail turn off. There's a cairn, you know. I don't know what this cairn is. Cairn's either the end of the line, whether it keeps going. Sometimes it's a demarcation for like a campsite, but I don't know about you, my friend. I'm not seeing a campsite. I'm seeing absolute magic though. Look at this pine right here. Look at the pop of this red, this foliage, volcanic, and then the pine. These trees in the background, like this is ridiculous. This right here is a volcanic wonderland, my friend. This is pretty cool, I gotta say. It was worth coming around here just to kind of see this delicate ecosystem. This is pretty darn gorgeous. There's another cairn up here. I feel like I'm in like Assassin's Creed Valhalla. There's supposed to have some sort of puzzle I'm supposed to solve. It's a gamer reference for you. Don't know what all these cairns are. I don't really know what's going on back here, but is this the end of the line or can I keep going? I mean, there's more cairns. See, I see a cairn there and a cairn way off in the distance. I see 3 cairns from where I'm standing. Kind of indicates to me I can keep going this way. Because how did people collect the cairns unless they walk through here, right? I think the cairns are guiding us somewhere, my friend. Somewhere special. There's a cairn straight ahead. Cairns are here for a reason. They don't just put cairns for the cairn's sake. This definitely feels like a path, defined foot trail. And I'm not really disturbing any sort of delicate ecosystem. It's just a little grass. What do we have up here, my friend? I'm not really sure where this is taking us. The Swallow Lake Trail. Ooh, look at all those lapine. Purple cluster. Magic over there. That's pretty cool. Look at that. That is pretty gorgeous. Alpinorific, my friend. The mountain flower. One of my favorites. Oh yeah, that is gorgeous. It's the trail we just came from. Turned around, had to ascend a little area that I descended, and now I'm back in the Carn zone. Being in the Carney right now, and I'm gonna go straight and then up around the left, same trail I took to weave down to this volcanic zone. I think it was worth it just to parallel this area. I'm glad I came down here. This is a volcanic wonderland and pretty darn epic if you ask this kid, so glad I came down here, but I'm gonna go back from whence I came, retrace my steps, ultimately go around these trees to the left and then back to the front of South Cinder Peak and then back onto PCT, north a little bit, turn right at Shirley Lake Trailhead, and then back down that to Coral Lake, and then back down that to Cabot Lake Trailhead. Good news is I can afford to be adventurous right now because I have a ton of drinks. I've got 1.5 Powerades and an energy drink. I still have 4 of my 6 pepperoni sticks. And I've pretty much done the lion's share of the elevation. This is like a 2,600 elevation gain hike, and I've done like 24 of it, 24, 25. I got like another 100 feet, just natural machinations of the trail, going back down Shirley Lake, a little bit on Coral Lake, but I've done like over 90% of the elevation gain, which is always the hardest part. So definitely in mop-up mode. Going back, as we know, as alpine adventurers, is always way easier than going up. So I feel like I'll just get in a rhythm going downhill for several miles and ultimately make it back to my vehicle in GTFO from Cabot Lake Trailhead. That makes it sound like I'm fleeing it. I'm enjoying it. Once I get back to the trailhead, I always get an impatient urge to get home. It's like gonna be an hour 40 drive. So if I could push a button and just magically appear in my driveway, I would do it. But probably listen to a podcast or something. Think about something to make the hour and 40 go by quickly. Oh, I love this lone pine right here. This volcanic wonderland. All these pops are red and this volcanic zone. Look at that. I just came from that Carn zone between that volcanic area. Look up at all those trees. Oh, look at the trees. Look at those trees on the side of that volcanic zone. And then you got this incredible pine. The star of this area, we got some purple flowers, pops of color, vibrancy, dancing on our senses, sensory overload, sensation, delight. I like to talk in the most ridiculous, obscure linguistic words as possible. That's what I do. Yeah, this is a magical alpine zone. This is actually a hidden gem. I don't normally hear about people saying, come around to the back end of South Cinder, but look at this. Do you appreciate a good volcanic zone? All these little trees, this cinder, juxtaposition of these red pops of foliage. This is a pretty gorgeous zone, I gotta say. So don't sleep on the back end of South Cinder. It's probably worth hiking around here, especially if you're, let's say you're backcountry camping at Coral Lake as your base camp. I don't know why you wouldn't come explore this whole area. This is legit. I would say if you camp at Coral Lake's obviously your main playground, but I think a side day hike, explore the South Cinder Peak area is definitely in order. I think if you backcountry camp at Coral Lake and don't bother to come hike over to South Cinder Peak, you're probably missing an opportunity because it is well worth it. This is an epic volcanic zone. It's like you've changed your ecological footprint just for a few mile hike. Well worth it, in my humble opinion. Now we're heading back. Enjoying the wind. Oh, the wind. wind feels great, my friend. I don't think I fully appreciated how much downhill I came. South Cinder is straight ahead on the left. South Cinder Peak. I descended this volcanic zone down that way, realizing how much decline I actually took. A little bit of a climb back up. South Cinder Peak. So yeah, the one interface I found, I guess, is the trailhead. Steep section. Ooh, look at this bird. Oh, look at that. That is a bird, my friend. Gorgeous. We got our friend, South Cinder Peak, beside us. We are, after kind of attempting to hike around Cinder Peak, going back to the Cairn zone of volcanic goodiness, which I'm glad I went down. The trail just keeps starting going down somewhere else, not back to where we want to go. So checked GPS, turned around. There's no signage, so I went a little while, but cooler heads prevailed. Now I'm returning back from whence I came. I'm gonna come back around the right here of South Cinder Peak to the front of it, where we initially accessed it from the north. Right now we're kind of on the southeast quadrant of it. So I'm gonna go this way. I'm gonna get back on the PCT, this time headed north. Basically done with my out part, doing my back part. So I will go down PCT to the junction, turn right at Shirley Lake. That'll just be a downhill on a ridgeline. Heck of a lot more fun doing that downhill than uphill, because it was like over 1,000 feet elevation gain and like a mile exposed. So that was probably the hardest part of this whole hike as far as getting to the South Cinder Peak zone. So I get to do that, but this time downhill. That'll be easy breezy. And then I will get back down to Carl Lake, and it's just a 5-mile hike back down about 1,400 feet. It was pretty flat. It's going down switchbacks. Really your biggest risk returning from Carl Lake is all the rocks in the trail. A little bit of a situational awareness thing where you got to pay attention to your footwork, because you could turn an ankle pretty easily. As long as I do that, knock on wood, down from where we're at now, it should be pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy. Already done the harder half of the hike. And I'm just gonna relax and go slow, get in my happy place, and drink my drinks and my snacks slowly as I descend. Who knows, I might even drink both Powerades and my energy drink. I'm feeling crazy. I almost never drink all my drinks. So a lot of it's just for emergency preparedness in case I, knock on wood, get hurt. So, not to jinx myself, knock on wood again. But today I might actually drink all my drinks. This is Wilderness Trail perspective, just out of control. Using all of his supplies. The madness, the sheer madness. Ah, yes. We are seconds away from contact again. Our close, trusty friend, the majestic and mighty Mount Jefferson. There he is. Hey there, buddy. I missed you. I tried to go around South Cinder Peak. It didn't work out for me, but I still had fun, and I got to see some cool volcanic sections. And now I'm back with you, my friend, where I belonged all along. Just you, me, the wilderness area, just hanging out. This feels good. Gotta love the views of a gorgeous mountain. I mean, that is majestic right there, my friend. Beautiful, majestic, mighty Mount Jefferson. One of my favorite mountains in the entire state of Oregon. I'd say Jefferson and Broken Top, but if you're talking about just like a proper peaked mountain, because Broken Top's a little weird, it's got a broken top. If you're just talking about like a classic mountain, I don't think you can beat Mount Jefferson. I think Jefferson's the best. I like Jefferson better than Hood, personally. I'm not afraid to say it. I know Hood's 1,000 feet taller, tallest mountain in the state of Oregon. I do like Hood. get me wrong, but I like Jefferson better. A little biased. We're trying to go to PCT, which is over there, but I mentioned before, as I look back at South Cinder Peak, hello there, South Cinder Peak, that was the area we were climbing in earlier. I'm going to start back this way. I talked about earlier doing a loop here and coming down PCT and going back Swallow Lake. This might be Swallow Lake. It's my best guess that I'm on Swallow Lake. This should loop to the right as long as I'm hanging next to PCT. I know I'm going the right direction. PCT to my right. One end is Swallow Lake, the other is PCT. One side is the South Cinder Peak, the other side is the Trail Junction, Shirley Lake. So I went down PCT and I think I'm completing the circle. And right now I think I'm going down Swallow Lake Trail, which is actually a little bit more scenic, I'd say. These, I don't know if that's purple. What color is that? It's pretty cool. Not purple, it's like orangish pink, red, something like that. I don't know. It's pretty, I'll give you that. It's good, it's an interesting color, it's an eclectic color. So, right now I'm guessing this is Swallow Lake Trail, but could also be wrong, who knows. Could just be epic backcountry camping down here, which is still cool to see. Who knows, I'm being adventurous. Hoping this is going to take me back to my junction. Otherwise I have to backtrack on this like I did the last one. So I hypothesized from Cinder Peak that this little side trail was essentially Swallow Lake Trail, and I was, my friend, correct. Back to the junction, completed the circle, Swallow Lake Trail. So I had initially gone that way down PCT to South Cinder Peak, did the South Cinder Peak, you can see it from right here. I came back this way. Now, that's the PCT. We're going back this way. This is Shirley Lake Trail. This is what we ascended. This was that hardest section where we were just going straight up for like a mile, like 1,000 feet. Hardest part of the whole hike, actually. But now we get to go down, so that should be downright pleasure. Oh my gosh, look at that. Now that is an opened up panoramic canyon basin right there. Come around that corner and you can hear angels singing. Look at this. This is gorgeous. This is pretty epic, my friend. We're getting back on Shirley Lake Trail, and it's all downhill from here. Literally, not rhetorically. So literally all downhill from here. So we have about 7 miles back to our trailhead. We're a little over halfway, but the entire way down is like 2,400 feet down-ish from where we're at right now. So 7 miles, but about 2,400 feet down. So it's all downhill from here. So that's a heck of a lot easier. Much easier to go down 2,400 feet than up 2,400 feet, my friend. Look at those views. Love that rocky avalanche. These trees are just majestic. This is Mount Jefferson Wilderness proper. And we are descending an alpine wonderland right now down this ridgeline, the Shirley Lake Trail. And I am digging this, my friend. It's also nice to just kind of be able to know you're going downhill so you can relax a little bit more and take in the scenery. Cautionary advice though, you're more likely to get injured going downhill than uphill, because for that very reason you let off your situational awareness and your attention because you think you're in mop-up mode. Your legs get a little rubberier, and you start maybe thinking ahead to what you're going to do when you get back to the car, what you're going to do when you get home, and start daydreaming and getting distracted and thinking about other things. And before you know it, a little tree goblin, a little root from one of the trees gets you, and you trip, take a tumble, and twist your ankle, and then you feel stupid. Oh, look at how beautiful that is. There's the trail we're coming up. You feel stupid because you're like, oh, that was completely unnecessary. I should have just been paying attention. and I wouldn't have gotten injured. So I'm letting my energy off because I'm going downhill, but I'm not lowering my situational awareness. I'm watching every single step as I should be. Instead, for me, going down slightly harder because I feel like I'm more likely to lose control of my footing and take a slip or a tumble. So I'm already always more at attention going down than going up, but that's me. That's how I roll. This is an alpine wonderland. When I decided to do this, I was looking forward to going up to Cinder Peak, and I think that was well worth doing, but I did not appreciate that the Shirley Lake trail portion, Ridgeline, was going to be such a looker. This is pretty awesome. This is some pretty high quality alpine hiking wilderness adventuring right here. I'm trying to give you as many panoramas as I can. This is definitely a wonderland zone as far as alpine wilderness adventuring. So I would say, I think this is a bucket list area. Drive up to Cabot Lake Trailhead, and then I recommend going in the morning because you want to do your ascension while it's still cool, lower temperature. You go by Cabot Lake, which is really nothing great. It's a glorified bog, a swamp. Feels like somebody should pop their head out with a knife in full camo, that kind of a bog. And then you go by the Unnamed Lake, which is also kind of slightly better than Cabot, but it's like going from a D- to a D+. It's not really that impressive. But then you get up to Coral Lake. Coral Lake is a really high quality alpine lake, definitely a backpacking worthy destination. So if you're doing it a day hike, I would stop by Coral Lake, and then I would continue on. If you just go to Coral Lake, it's 10.5 miles and about 1,400 foot elevation gain. If you extend about 4 miles, it goes from 10.5 to 14.5, and from 1,400 to 2,600. That 4 miles almost doubles the elevation, so that's going to be the steepest section of area I'm actually walking down right now as we speak. So it goes up to 14.5 miles, about 2,600 foot elevation gain to the summit of South Cinder Peak. Explore that area, turn around, come back. But my viewpoint is, if you're day hiking, and this is like a bucket list hike you're only going to ever do once, you might as well add the South Cinder because it's worth coming up there. It's a gorgeous zone and you're never going to get up there any other way. This is the shortest distance as a day hike, is accessing it from Cabot Lake. So if you tell yourself you will come back and do it, you probably never will. So I would just include it with Coral Lake if you got the energy and the juice, literally and figuratively. So that's my recommendation. So that's the plan if you day hike it. Even better, I would come up like Thursday or Friday and backpack, and I would camp at Coral Lake, and I would luxuriate and relax and swim and lay in the water and bring my swim trunks and fishing rod. Of course, check the regulations on the rules on that. Don't take my word for it. But then I would just hang out at Coral Lake, and then I would plan one epic day hike up to South Cinder Peak. I would bring trekking poles, even if you leave them in your bag for the main hike to Coral Lake. Use them going up South Cinder Peak. I will say, if you have a horrible, crippling fear of heights, I would not even try ascending South Cinder Peak because I think it would trigger you. It's a little sketch. It's doable if you got sure footing and are confident. It's absolutely safe and doable. But if you've got a really bad fear of heights, I think South Cinder Peak will probably sketch you out a little bit, keeping it real. So I probably wouldn't ascend it, but it's still worth hiking to the zone. So I would hike over to South Cinder Peak, hike around South Cinder Peak, check out the pristine volcanic zone around the side of it. I think that's worth checking out too. That's what I did. And then I would return as a day hike and then go home the next day. So plan A would be backpack with a day hike to South Cinder, and plan B would just be one long day hike, including Coral Lake and South Cinder, which is what I'm doing today. So I think you should always link Coral Lake and South Cinder as a day hike if you're coming up here. It's a little bit of a rough drive, and candidly, a lot of people only do these kind of hikes once as a bucket list thing, and there's so many other cool hikes to do. They don't ever get around to doing it. So I think a lot of people will do the noteworthy hikes like once in their life. I think that's pretty common. And then they'll just move on to the next one and the next one. And there's so many to get to that even with that methodology, they might not eventually do all of the ones they even wanted to do. So don't tell yourself that I'm just going to do Coral Lake this time, but next time I come, I'm going to go farther to South Cinder, because you probably will never come back here again, keeping it real. So just go ahead and bite the bullet and do South Cinder the one time you come, and then, because you'll never come back. Keeping it real, my humble opinion. Oh, this is a gorgeous zone. I'm a person afflicted with allergies, and something around here is definitely triggering my nose, but that's okay. So allergens are in full bloom. If you are an allergen sensitive person like myself, be aware that I'd probably be worth bringing like a paper towel or some Kleenex or something so you can wipe your nose if you need to as you're hiking. Always just a good general rule of thumb anyway, but I think there's some stuff in the air, some pollen, some grasses, some trees, whatever the heck it is, definitely, at least for me, triggering my allergens. So, not detracting from my general trip, but just a heads up, be conscious of that. Continuing to go down Shirley Lake. Continuing down Shirley Lake Trail. Just finished a Powerade. So one Powerade down, one Powerade to go, and my energy drink. Here's Shirley Lake Trail. It looks like we're leaving the canyon zone, descending back into the forest proper, sir. Little panoramic views. The trees across the way blowing in the wind and saying hello. Way. That's a little backcountry campsite right there. Very nice. This is our main trail. Worth noting, a pretty high quality backcountry campsite just before the Ridgeline section of Shirley Lake. So if you're just out of juice, you're like, I can't go up another 1,000 feet. I can't ascend to Pacific Crest Trail up Shirley Lake Trail. I'm done. Then there's a nice flat campsite right there where you can relax and recharge and re-energize and live to hike another day. Now we're going down here. Again, heading back down to Shirley Lake and Coral Lake, on which we will then be on our final 5-mile, 1,400-foot descent, not ascent, thankfully descent, down to Cabot Lake Trailhead. Launching point for our hiking festivities today. This is gorgeous. This is gorgeous. Hello there. Mount Jefferson, look at that. That is gorgeous. I believe that is, we got, I think, Goat Peak and North Cinder up there somewhere. I don't know which one's which, but pretty darn gorgeous. More importantly, you got Mount Jefferson towering over the area, one of the tallest mountains in the entire state of Oregon. Majestic wonderland. Wonder of Oregon. And even though it's pretty much naked Mount Jefferson, most of the snow is melted. That bright white pop marshmallow goodness is pretty magical. Oh, this is gorgeous. gotten a little bit away from the panoramic Alpine Canyon expansive overlook beautiful view section and kind of gotten into a nondescript, what I often, I guess, disparagingly refer to as dirty forest. Just a lot of undergrowth and underbrush and not really a scenic area, more of a cost of doing business area. You got to get through it to get to the prettier parts. So now we're back in that narrow passageway zone that took us up to that Shirley Lake Trail Canyon Ridgeline. We are descending back down to the Shirley Lake proper zone, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Coral Lake. Whatever you do, do not say Coral Lake like Rick does on Walking Dead. Carl! Don't do it. Don't do it. It is amazing how much faster you go downhill. Like, I'm already almost back to Shirley Lake, and you kind of fly back a lot faster than you realize. Downhill is so much faster than uphill. We are almost back to Shirley Lake and Coral Lake, descending down Shirley Lake Trail. Little formation there. Okay, so we are minutes away from solving the case of the mystery of Shirley Lake. We seem to have some lake contact right here. Maybe that's Shirley Lake, who knows? What do I know? I only hike here. Maybe that's Shirley Lake. That's in the right spot. I'm gonna have my eyes glued right here for a side trail. Perhaps I missed it before. Certainly possible. To this point, I have not even seen Shirley Lake. Maybe I'm looking at it right now. Certainly a sparkly lake. Look at that. Look at the sparkle of that lake. I don't know if that's coming through, but pretty darn gorgeous, friend. The heck do you get down there? This seems like the first area that you can actually kind of safely descend. It's been pretty steep over there. This area looks okay. So we'll go down this disheveled section of forest. Arguably this whole area is a backcountry camping zone. Reason why you couldn't pop a tent down here. It's got some slanting, but not deal breaker level slanting in my opinion. I think this is Shirley Lake. I think this is Shirley Lake. This is not Carl Lake. I think I bushwhacked my way down to Shirley Lake. I still don't really understand how you're supposed to get to the shoreline. Don't know what I'm missing. I hiked all the way up Shirley Lake Trail. I didn't see a side trail, so I don't really understand. Normally, areas have an intuitive design. This doesn't seem to have one, but nevertheless, hello. I think I found Shirley Lake. Look at that. Very beautiful. Come down here. Oh, this is our close friend, Shirley Lake. Our trusty pal, our confidant, the best listener, Shirley Lake. Yep, here we are. Yeah, this is not Carl Lake. I was just at Carl Lake. This is Shirley Lake. I found you, Shirley Lake. So I solved the mystery of Shirley Lake. It is not that bog right on the trail to your right after Carl Lake. No, it is down here. This is our close trusty friend, Shirley Lake. Other than just kind of bushwhacking your way off the trail to the left as you go on Shirley Lake Trail, I don't really know how to get down here. Wasn't like a very clear defined path that I saw. It does look like there might be some backcountry camping over there. Look at that straight ahead. It's like a pretty cool backcountry camping zone. Tempted to walk around. Is that worth it? That might actually be worth it. I think I might do that. I think I might do that. I think I am the only human being here. Kind of weird. There's not like a side path. Like when you're at Carl Lake, you take Shirley Lake Trail. I did that up to South Cinder Peak up in the PCT zone. But while you're traversing Shirley Lake Trail, it looks like on all trails, there's like a little side trail down to Shirley Lake where I'm standing now. I did not find a Shirley Lake side trail. I walked all the way up Shirley Lake from Carl Lake to PCT and now back. I'm actually on my way back to Carl Lake and then back to the trailhead. But I was determined to solve the mystery of Shirley Lake. I basically just started bushwhacking. See this area right here? I basically just bushwhacked through a alpine zone. There was definitely not like a clearly created path. I just kind of walked over logs and around trees and just kind of old school. And lo and behold, I came down to the shoreline of Shirley Lake and just kind of spotted it between some trees and came down here. So kind of weird. I don't know why. This is a pretty lake. I mean, look at this. Some good green in the middle there. I don't know why this doesn't have a more clearly defined path. Like, why the heck wouldn't they, unless I'm a moron, which is always a possibility, and I totally missed it twice. Again, a possibility. I don't understand why they don't have a more clearly marked trail with, I don't know, some signage that says Shirley Lake to the left, and then a very clearly defined trail down here. I think that would make eminent sense. It would make a lot of sense. So I think they need to improve the signage and the trail down here, because I think this is a hidden lake that not a lot of people come to. I'm here on a Friday at the end of August 26th. I appear to be the only person here, not because the lake isn't worthy, but because nobody knows how the heck to get here. You got to be an intrepid adventurer to find your way to Shirley Lake. Thought it was worth walking the shoreline because I thought from the other side I saw a really high quality backcountry camping spot, so I'm checking it out right now. Haven't gotten there yet, but I am on my way. In the meantime, I'm going to keep giving you panoramas. Shirley Lake, an abandoned lake. August 26th, end of summer, Friday. I'm the only person here. This gorgeous alpine lake, because nobody knows how the heck to get here because it's hidden and doesn't even have a trail. You just have to walk through trees. Kind of a weird setup, but now that I'm here, it was worth it. Like, if I'm looking for a backcountry campsite, look at this. I mean, this is a private alpine lake to yourself, and this spot up here is actually what caught my eye from the other side. Looked like a high quality backcountry campsite. I will know momentarily. And I look like I had that set up. And yeah, I think it does. I was thinking that was a fire ring right there. It doesn't look like it is, but still, I mean, you can come up here and camp. Pretty well shaded, pretty good wind right here. So also some inner forest areas over there. You can come right over here and camp, put your tent somewhere over here, and then just kind of have this perch where you're overlooking Shirley Lake. So I'm going to say this is a hidden gem backcountry campsite right here. This area, this zone, like several places you could put a tent. You can put a tent straight ahead. The other side of these trees looks like a big flat swath. And you have this pond, bog zone straight ahead. And then it looks like there's a little connector that says forest connecting to Shirley Lake. Shirley Lake's definitely the draw looking this way. The bog doesn't do much for me to the right, but I don't know, backcountry camping, Shirley Lake seems like a hidden gem out here. There's no side trail to it. You kind of have to bushwhack over some down logs and some trees, kind of know where it is on the map. Lo and behold, you see the sparkle of the water and you're almost there. Descend down to Shoreline and walk around the shore, here you are. I think this is a hidden gem, very high quality backcountry campsite, Shirley Lake. So I'm exploring the Shirley Lake Alpine Lake Wonderland zone. I've identified this area up here as a particularly high quality hidden gem backcountry campsite. Basically, probably have this whole area yourself. It's a Friday afternoon, August 26th. I am the only human being right now at Shirley Lake. I think it's very difficult to find. There's no side trail that I at least found, no signage. So I think a lot of people just frankly don't know that Shirley Lake is hanging out here. I think there's a really high chance you could come up here and backcountry camp. And as I said, camp right over there on the right and essentially have a perch overlooking Shirley Lake and have this area all to yourself for the weekend. Might not even see anybody here. So I think that's a pretty attractive proposition. Backcountry camper, I would definitely do it, but to each his or her own. I'm going back this little side trail to see where this leads. This is the most trailage I've found since I've been here. I'm also stopping to just get some high quality views of Shirley Lake. Went to the trouble to bushwhack to get over here. I might as well get a little lake view action. So where does this take us? Because I know how to get back the way I came. I'm just trying to figure out if this is some, see that going that way? I don't get it. I came from that way. I'm gonna go back from whence I came because I don't want to start going down that way and end up lost. I don't know, maybe there is a trail, but I didn't see it. I walked from Coral Lake all the way across Shirley Lake Trail up to Pacific Crest Trail to South Cinder Peak, and then I walked all the way back. I was almost back to Coral Lake, and I was like, where is this Shirley Lake? I don't see any signage, I don't see any side trails. So I finally just started bushwhacking, and I kind of stumbled upon it by accident more than anything else. Looked at my GPS, figured out where it should be and just kept going, and then it was there. So I don't know. I don't really get it. I think they should make a defined trail with some signage, make a very smooth, clear path. I think this lake warrants it. Look at this. Don't you think this lake warrants its own little side trail? I think it does. So, of course, the caveat that I could be an idiot and maybe I missed it, but I don't think I did. I didn't see it. I was paying attention. I'll come up here. Choose my own adventure how to get back up into the forest. I have returned back to Carl Lake. Now that we have left the Shirley Lake area, we are going back from whence we came. My guess is that it being August 26th on Friday afternoon now, like 1 o'clock. I started this hike at 7. My hike up, I was the only one here, but I would expect this area to fill up with backpackers, even in the few hours I've been up at South Cinder Peak and over at Shirley Lake. Heading back to Trailhead, and still got 5 miles and about 1,400 feet left of decline. And now I'm back to Carl Lake. I was fortunate earlier to be able to walk on the shoreline and get some money shots of it, so I feel like I hopefully already did it justice. When I first got to this first lookout, it was too dark and too early in the morning to really get the glow of the lake. We'll see. Take one last look at the shoreline there before I continue on and see if the glisten is there, worth capturing that or not. And then we will start our descent back to Unnamed Lake, Cabot Lake, and ultimately back to the trailhead. Look at the incredible beauty of Carl Lake. I'm standing here on the shoreline of Carl Lake. Actually on my way back to the trailhead after going to South Cinder Peak. But I thought it'd be worth stopping and capturing the beauty of this absolutely incredible Carl Lake. Sun is higher in the sky. We're getting a majestic glow, majestic view of Carl Lake. This, my friend, is absolutely beautiful. Oh, look at how gorgeous this is. As we leave Carl Lake, let's continue back up this little rocky section. And we will begin back on the trailhead, descending to Unnamed Lake and ultimately Cabot Lake, and ultimately back to our Cabot Lake trailhead, where we parked, good sir, and issued ourselves a self-issue permit. People always say self-issue permit's easy, but nobody ever considers what if you decline your own request. You have to get back in your car, go right home. Hopefully you're lucky and you accept all of your own requests. Feels good to get out of that Carl Lake range. I could definitely tell that there was more people there than earlier this morning. I had left the trailhead like 7:15-ish. I was the only one on the entire hike from Cabot Lake Trailhead to Carl Lake. I could tell there was 2 people camping at Carl Lake. And then all I did is go up to Shirley Lake Trail to South Cinder Peak, played around that area, came back down and found Shirley Lake, walked around the shoreline of that, then I got back down to Carl Lake, and even just in that few hours I was up in that other area, a bunch more people got to Carl Lake. So I feel like it's a weekly mecca to Carl Lake. Carl Lake's a pretty popular backpacking zone, and being a Friday, end of August, no mosquitoes, good weather. Haven't seen a single mosquito the whole time, so I'm guessing the mosquitoes are dead. So we're in the mosquito-free zone, August 26th. No mosquitoes, good weather, only a high of 75, no forest smoke. August going into a weekend and on a Friday, it's kind of the perfect conditions for a backpacking trip. So I was expecting it to get really busy, and I think it is. I didn't really count, but I could tell there was more people there already now at 1 than there was when I got there earlier at 9 or 10. So I will not be surprised if during my hike I run into some more backpackers ascending up to Carl Lake. So it's a pretty good bang for your buck. I mean, it's only 5 miles and 1350 to 1400 feet with a backpack up to Carl Lake. That's a great value proposition, and then you get a few days of epic lake play. I think that's well worth it as far as a backpacker's mentality yield. So I'm not surprised Coral Lake is very popular. So I'm very glad I did this hike. So I've been on my list for a while. I did it once before, but I'd never filmed it. So I feel really good that I captured this one. It's been on my list for a while. I did the full 3 Fingered Jack series just south of us from all 3 day hikes. The Pacific Crest Trail Santiam up north on the PCT to the Money Shot, top of the Ridgeline switchback zone, highest point in the 24-mile loop. It's like a 14-miler. I have that one. And then I also have the same trailhead, PCT, Santiam Pass, but turning right on Old Summit Trail to Square Lake and Booth Lake. Actually uploaded that one recently. That one seemed popular for some reason, getting a lot of views, which is, I guess, good. And then the Canyon Creek Meadows Jack Lake Trailhead, that's the only one that's recreation.gov permit required, costs $1. They have a permit quota system. Grab your permit online, recreation.gov, go there, hike up to Canyon Creek Meadows, hike up to the Turquoise Cirque, sure footing, might not be bad to have trekking poles. I personally then like to hug Canyon Creek over to Wasco Lake, and then go up Minto Pass to the Wasco Lake overlook. Keep going through the Burnout until you get to the Mount Washington viewpoint zone. Well worth it, really dynamic area with some really vibrant colors. You can make that anywhere 14 to 17 miles depending on how aggressive. You could do 10 miles, 12 miles, you can do whatever you want to do, but you can make that as aggressive or light as you want because it's an arbitrary turnaround point. But I would definitely stop at the latest point at the bottom of the switchbacks. No reason to go all the way up those switchbacks. It adds a lot of elevation and then you just turn around and go right back down them. Probably one of the more dangerous sections and you're just adding elevation and danger for no reason really. So I would stop at the end of that forest, the bottom of the switchbacks on that one. So anyway, I captured all 3 of the 3 Fingered Jack hikes. This kind of felt like a companion hike just north of it. Coral Lake and Cabot Lake, and Shirley Lake, and South Cinder Peak. So it feels like it's part of a jigsaw puzzle that fit right next to the 3 Fingered Jack piece. So, we're descending back from whence we came. Descending is always so much easier. It's amazing. It's not just the difficulty as far as going up versus going down. So I've talked about, I was more worried about getting injured going down than I am going up. So my situational awareness goes into overdrive going back, actually, like right now. So I'm always just convinced I'm going to trip on a little rock. Most injuries happen going down, not going up, because your attention shifts and you get rubbery legs. But anyway, it's always amazing. It's not just that it's less exertion because of less elevation, but your time perception. When you're going up and you're excited about getting to your destination and there's an anticipation, it's like waiting in the morning before you open your Christmas presents. You could wait for 10 minutes, but it'll be the longest 10 minutes of your life because you're so excited, you just can't wait, right? So when you're hiking up and you're anticipating your next point of interest, your next waypoint, it feels like your perception of time slows down and it feels like it's a forever, hike. That could be good or bad, depending on how you look at it, I guess. And then when you are going back, like I am now, your attention shifts and you may be thinking about what you're doing to get in the car, maybe you're thinking about what you're doing to get home, maybe you're thinking about how much you enjoyed your previous sites, but you've already done these sections, so you're just kind of in mop-up mode. You're in the back part of your out and back. It's amazing how much your time accelerates. And it'll feel like you went, like when I went up that Shirley Lake Ridgeline zone, I felt like that was forever. I mean, it was harder. I was going uphill. I was exposed. It's hot. It felt like a really long section. And then I went down it, and I felt like it was 5 minutes. It was like, that was a short section. So it's just amazing how going back, everything feels faster. Perception of time changes, which makes it feel different. So maybe I'm being a bit cerebral, but I've definitely noticed the elements of the arc of a wilderness adventure, of the emotional stages. We are back to the unnamed lake zone. You can see silhouette through the forest with the trees. We are descending back from whence we came. There's our unnamed lake. I'm not going to claim it's like the most epic thing in the world. Maybe it'll look a little better in the sunshine than it did this morning. This morning it had a boggy swamp thing feel, which wasn't really feeling, but in all fairness, most lakes look pretty bad in the early morning before the sun glistened. Most of them look like just swampy bogs. So we're going by the Unnamed Lake. Here's one of the access points. Looks slightly better with the sun's full glisten. Here's that access point I mentioned coming up. So yeah, it looks a little bit better than it did this morning when it just had that swamp boggy thing going on, but keeping it real, it's not the most epic lake in the world. That's what I call a utility lake. Like if you're backpacking and you run out of time or lose your energy, have an injury, whatever the case may be, knock on wood, and you just need a base camp, it definitely would work, but it's not really like an intended destination type place. You wouldn't put a thumbtack on that spot on your map. Say, hey, I gotta go camp there. Not that kind of a place. There's a little bit of place you can probably put your tent. A little backcountry action on the shoreline. So Unnamed Lake is a little blah. Serviceable utility, but not destination worthy. Carl Lake is destination worthy. That's, if you're backpacking in this area, you're going to Carl Lake or you're crazy. I think Cabot Lake and Unnamed Lake are just situational utility plays, but nobody's endpoint, actual intended destination. Oh, look at these colors. It's August 26th. It's not fall foliage yet, so this is just colors of the bushes. Very beautiful though. And diverse ecosystem. I am digging it. Definitely has the alpine feel, which I enjoy. Alpine mix of hemlocks and spruces, pines. It's very beautiful. Oh, this is gorgeous. Sun feels good. We are baking. We are in the oven. We are set at 350. Oh, this is pretty hot. Yeah, these burnout areas just have a vibrancy. Like I look around and feel a little satiated by all the pops of color of reds and greens and different species of trees. It's just interesting, lots of points of interest. Keeps my attention, does it for me personally. To each is his or her own. But I love me a good burnout zone. Really more than those old growth forests. Something about old growth forests I sometimes find depressing. It's very monotone and shadowy and I don't know. It's not my favorite, to be honest. I think that's why I like Three Sisters wilderness type topography, like pines and white rocks and granite and just kind of a pristine gray sand alpine zone. For some reason that speaks a lot more to me than just like a old growth forest, shady, full of pine needles. It feels depressing. Maybe that's my own personal issue. Here's a backcountry campsite right there, very high quality. One of the more high quality ones. That is before Unnamed Lake if you're coming up from Cabot Lake Trailhead. Show you again. There's our trail. There's a backcountry campsite. It's usable, serviceable, I'd say. How can I still be walking through spider webs? Some people should have come up here. I felt like Carl Lake was busier. I don't know. Maybe those spiders are very fast. Already threw up their next web. I got a joke for you. When did you discover that the spider was dishonest? After you got through his web of lies. Might have worked with the rim shot. I don't really have special effects capability, so we'll just go wah, wah, wah. Oh, I really enjoyed these shaded parts. Earlier the sun was baking me at 350. I'm worried now the sun is baking me at 400. I don't want to get up to 500. I could live at 450, but I like to keep a thermometer embedded in my skin, and when it pops, I know I'm done. This really is a gorgeous area. A little bit more of the sunshine, but still a swampy, creepy bog as far as I'm concerned. Keeping it real, not exactly a looker. If you're hiking up in this area, you're going for Carl Lake. Carl Lake is, Carl, as Rick would say, Carl. Carl Lake is the best. I think Unnamed Lake. They both kind of suck, keeping it real. I mean, that is not a destination lake. That is could be a movie set where nightmares come from, not a high quality lake. Keeping it real. Also not really a fan of this kind of a forest zone. Some of these forest zones have been absolutely spectacular. Good ecological footprints, alpine mix that I love and enjoy. This has got that old growth underbrush feel. Not really my favorite, keeping it real. So wasn't my favorite section. We are returning back, and see now, I already like this again. Got some spruces and some pines. It is livening up again. Beauty is returning. As we leave the dark area. Feels like there should be like a creepy witch and like a creepy cabin in that area, and it's creating a darkness on that zone. I would just skip right on by and go all the way up to beautiful Carl Lake. Carl Lake, on the other hand, is majestic. It's a money shot. It's beautiful. It's epic. It is a worthy backcountry camping destination. Kind of an interesting piece of the trunk there, all ripped open. My theory is that somebody had an energy drink like a monster. They just did that. That's what happens when you have energy drinks. So you gotta be careful. We are on the descent. My feet are a little sore. I'm in the oven right now, baking at 400. Thermometer hasn't popped out of my leg, so I'm not cooked yet. And I am descending back to Cabot Lake Trailhead, where I parked. I get to do the bumpy drive back to the main highway and then back to Madras, Oregon, where I live, northeast of my current location. So we got some up close and personal shots with our close friend, Mount Jefferson. I think the Mount Jefferson views and the Coral Lake views are definitely the two draws of this hike. So, South Cinder Peak is worth exploring. I would take trekking poles if you want to go to the top, if you want to summit. And Coral Lake is worth walking the shoreline, playing around a little bit there. Don't just go to that. There's one lookout, like right when you get to Coral Lake, there's a little shoreline there. You can go down some rocks and a little shoreline. I would not stop there and say, okay, I saw Coral Lake, I'm going home. I think you are missing out. I would continue on the trail, the main trail, and then hang right. And there's kind of a forested area above Coral Lake. You'll see some somewhat steep, but very safe shoreline access points. I would take one of those. I took one and ended up walking up and down the shoreline of Coral Lake, and gave me another level of appreciation for the beauty and the angles and the perspectives and the vantage points. So if you're gonna bother to hike all the way up to Coral Lake, then get the full Coral Lake experience, my friend. Don't just stop at the edge, take a look and turn around and go back. That's the point of that. Not fully experiencing Coral Lake, because once I went around to the shoreline and walked up and down it and captured some video of that, I fell more in love with it than just being at that edge, the trail edge right at the beginning. So fully explore that. Go up Shirley Lake. If you're really feeling brave, bushwhack over to Shirley Lake. Shirley Lake, that is. It's not, I shouldn't say bushwhack, because that makes it seem more of a daunting task than it is. You just kind of got to go through an obstacle course of down logs and around trees. A little situational awareness is actually not that hard. I didn't feel like I was endangering or exerting myself too much. Just kind of find the clear path through the trees and through the brush, kind of meander, step over a few logs, and before you know it, you're at the shoreline of Shirley Lake. You walk around to the other side, and there's actually a really high quality backcountry campsite that I found and hopefully captured. And so Shirley Lake is worth looking at. It's a side bonus. This is a video game that would be your secondary objective, but I think it's worth doing. So Coral Lake, South Cinder Peak with Mount Jefferson views. Even if you don't want to go to the top of South Cinder Peak, if you want to go like halfway or part way, you get some pretty epic views just a little ways up. Just go up, 100 feet or whatever it is, and get a money shot at Jefferson, come back down. It's probably really not that much better going all the way to the top. So you can capture 90% of the beauty with 20% of the effort there, just by going a little ways up, capturing the view and coming back down. So that's worth doing. Coral Lake's worth doing. Shirley Lake's worth doing. Now we're descending back down from whence we came. Hopefully we'll be back, because I am starting to get a little tired. Drank both my Powerades. I've had 3 huge pepperoni sticks, both my Powerades. The next thing is to break out my last drink, and that is my energy drink. I'm a huge fan of the brand Reign. Reign is epic. Reign is by far the best. I know people like Monster, people like Red Bull, whatever. You're missing out. Reign's the best. Chock full of vitamins and nutrients, and it tastes the best. Reign's the best. It's not even close. So I drink Reign every day. It's my energy drink of choice. This is a beautiful zone, my friend. Birds are accompanying me and singing me songs. I like to think it's because they view me as a friend, fellow traveler. They can tell I follow, leave no trace, and they are impressed. There's our friend Mount Jefferson, just the tip. Oh, this is so beautiful. It's our friend again, Mount Jefferson. We're descending the Ridgeline switchbacks. This epic burnout zone, ecologically diverse wonderland, vibrant pops of color in every direction, brimming with life. I enjoy this area. Feels vibrant to me. Feels vivacious and alive. And I am a fan. Kind of a weird hiking day. I'm surprised how little foot traffic I've seen. This entire hike I've not seen a single soul except somebody camping at the Carl Lake. I didn't interact with them though. So literally got all the way up to Carl Lake, went over to Pacific Crest Trail and up to Cinder Peak, South Cinder Peak zone. Didn't see a single person in that whole area. Didn't see a single person on PCT. Come all the way back and now I'm a couple miles from the trailhead. I have not seen a single person the entire hike. Actually, very much surprised me. I'm not complaining. Actually, I prefer the solitude, candidly. Not that I'm not happy to talk to people, but I like a good solitude-based hike. World's easiest game of limbo. Don't even have to duck. We're descending back through this absolutely gorgeous ridgeline zone. Look at this. Oh, this is beautiful. Just checked all trails and we're still about a mile and a half away from getting back to our trailhead. Feels like we're closer than we are. It's still a little ways. So this last mile and a half is just this exposed new growth ridgeline zone where we get some panoramic views down into the canyon. Go down at Cabot Creek. Can't really see it from the trail, but it's down there. You can hear it rushing at times. So it's interesting, I always start my hikes in the morning around sunrise or shortly thereafter. Happened to start this one about 7:15. Sunrise about 6:20, so I was about an hour into sun when I started. I really lollygagged. It's a word that needs to come back. And it looks like I'm gonna be back about 3:15, about 8 hours on the trail. I really was in no hurry. Total distance elevation is going to be about 15 miles and 2,700 feet, according to my stats. So I hung out at Coral Lake. I bushwhacked into Shirley Lake. I hung out at South Cinder Peak and really wasn't trying to make good time. That took a little longer than I was expecting because I really wasn't trying to bust a move. I was just kind of enjoying it. A little bit of a alpine bliss mode. So here it is. Going to be about 3:15 by the time I get back, according to my projections. That's a solid 8 hours of hiking. It's definitely the hotter time of day now, was my point. And this last mile and a half back, totally exposed for the most part. I can definitely feel the sun baking on me. I think I'm now at bake 450. I think the thermometer, my leg's about to pop out. I'm almost done, almost cooked. But I'm in the final mile and a half back to the vehicle. But unlucky topography on this particular hike that there's really no way to avoid long sun exposure at the end here. You can see this is entirely exposed. Stop here and get a shot of just the tip of Mount Jefferson. This is the gorgeous wonderland we're hiking through. I mean, this is ridiculously gorgeous. I love this area. This is why I wanted to come do this on a bright, sunshiny day. Can really capture the beauty of this burnout zone, this pinerific wonderland. So just prepare, maybe have a hat or something. Know that your last couple miles, if you're doing this 15-mile day hike, I calculated ahead of time at 14 and a half. It ended up being about 15 because I did a little side stuff. So 15 miles, 2,700 foot elevation gain. If you're gonna do this hike like I am doing, there's really no way to avoid coming back in the direct sun at the peak heat of day. So I'm definitely baking right now. I can feel it. Back of my neck. I didn't wear my hat either. It was a no-no on my part. It was a mistake. I should have worn my hat, actually. I was too excited to get started. I forgot to grab it. So definitely wear a hat if you can, because this sun is downright oppressive. It's probably in the low 70s right now, and between that and higher elevation and just this direct Mount Jefferson wonderland, Mount Jefferson wilderness zone, definitely feel like I'm baking right now. Sweating. I went through a lot of fluids on this hike too. I went through 2 huge sugar-free Powerades and a Rain energy drink. No sugar in that Powerades or no sugar. So it's a lot of fluid. 2 Powerades and an energy drink. And I drank a bunch of fluid on my drive here before I started. So I started kind of satiated. I always do that little trick. I even if I don't feel like it, I just kind of force myself to drink fluid on the way here. But I start the hike kind of well hydrated. That way you're not starting at a deficit. The last thing you want to do is be like, I don't feel like drinking anything this morning, and then show up and start your hike already down a quart, so to speak. Not smart. Man, this is just a gorgeous wonderland. I can't get enough of this. This is a pristine burnout zone as far as I'm concerned. This is one of the burnout zones I think of when I think of this area. This also feels a lot like the Wasco Lake area, northeast side of Three Finger Jack Loop. And we're actually not that far from that area, so not a coincidence it feels like that. Kind of a zone thing going on. Look at these ponderosas, look at this. Oh my gosh, beautiful blue sky. You know, we are not getting the forest fire haze today. We were lucky because there was some rain earlier this week. This area, not only did that help a little bit with the firefighting, but also just kind of knocks the haze out of the air. So just had rain. I don't think we've had any new forest fires that I'm aware of. Beautiful blue sky day. High 75, low 48 is about as good as it gets. End of August. Normally it's a bit higher than that. So perfect alignment of conditions. And now I'm just enjoying my hike, and I'm in the mop up mode. Still enjoying every step, even though I am excited to get to my vehicle because my feet do hurt a little bit. I am still very much enjoying every step of this, appreciating this high quality burnout zone. It's a magical area. It's nice to see it in its full blue sky summer splendor. The more I think about it, I think this is like a perfect length hike. 15 miles and 2,700 foot elevation gain. It's right in the sweet spot. It's very similar to Todd Lake to No Name Lake and Ben Glacier, and the Santine Pass Pacific Crest Trail up to the Money Shot, top of the switchbacks, highest point in the 24-mile loop. Look back here. Oh, look at that. Mount Jefferson Wilderness. Look at this incredible zone. It's like these pines are coming alive. They're like electric green. This is pretty magical, I gotta say. This is a pinerific zone. Pinerific heaven. If you like pines, come do this Coral Lake hike. Particularly this first burnout section is just Pine City. As I was saying, this 15-mile, 2,700 foot elevation hike is like a perfect sweet spot hike where you feel good at the end, like a sense of accomplishment. As I said, about the same length as the Todd Lake to No Name Lake and the Pacific Crest Trail Santine Pass up to the Money Shot, going north on PCT. Pretty similar to those hikes as far as mileage and elevation gain. So I'm in a little bit of a post-hike glow. I know I'm not done yet, but you know when you get to mop-up mode and you're just kind of savoring it. Kind of still feeling the remnants of your alpine bliss and just kind of in a little bit of a hiking nirvana. Part of it's probably endorphins and dopamine, and it's kind of in that sweet spot. That's how I'm feeling right now. Look down there, that's cool. I know I'm kind of in my final mile or so of my 15 miles. We're totally in mop-up mode. But the beauty is still abound. When I did this section this morning, a little after 7, didn't really have the full sunshine. It was pretty, but I feel like it's prettier now. Later in the day, a little bit more of a warm spectrum. Oh, look at that. That is gorgeous. Can I interest you in a panoramic wonderland, my friend? Look at that. Back at our friend Mount Jefferson, and here's our trail we're coming from. Hiking through this epic pine zone. Mighty fine pines in this area. Pinorific magic. Pining for pines. Come here. You'll have a wonderful pine. Get it? I feel there might be an unlimited number of pine-related puns. Interesting how much farther I have left. At last check, I had 1.5 miles till the trailhead. Been walking for a fair bit. I don't necessarily think I've gone 1.5 miles, but I feel like I put a dent into it. So we are getting close, my friend. Wow, look at this. I will panorama ourselves. Got Jefferson back there, got all these canyons. Kind of pretty to look up. All these trees in that rocky avalanche zone. I guess that when I was up there, I could have glissaded down those rocks, but that's probably not the best plan. I would highly recommend not doing that. Low probability of success on every level. They don't call me Manzanita. I'm hiking back to Cabot Trailhead. I would like to be back to my vehicle. My legs are a little sore. I just left the pine area. I don't like these Manzanitas nearly as much. If I could push a button and be in my car, I would definitely do that. It's kind of funny. If you're like me, when you get in mop-up mode, like, you almost kind of get in a speed walk, mad dash back to the vehicle. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm like, okay, gorgeous hike. I've loved it. This has been a wonderful experience. Felt good. Got some alpine bliss. Got some great video. But I am ready to get back to my car, drive home, get back in my warm, nice, cozy house, sit on the couch and relax. Put my feet up, take my shoes and socks off. I'm already looking forward to it.